Well, hello everybody, Mystery here, and today we are undertaking something I find pretty fun, honestly, which is we're going to be tier listing every talent on this lovely Skitarii talent tier list, and in doing so, we're going to hopefully outline for players who are trying to design their own tree what are the ones that you should be sort of dropping in order to pick other ones. That's the ultimate goal here, and the Skitarii has a lot of really good talent nodes. The secret in the class seems to be how you connect all these nodes with the most optimal pathing and choose the things you want. Of course, there are some stinkers in here too. There's some stuff that I think will probably get patched in the future, but you know, it is what it is, and we just got to do this. We're like, what, 10 or 11 days on into the class now, so it's high time to do our little talent tier list and lay out the preliminary groundwork for what this class is looking like. Let's first talk about what I mean when I say each ranking here. We have S, A, B, C, D, and the S tier of, you know, as you might imagine, these are the best of the absolute, like, top things on the class. There can, of course, be multiple things that are S tier that all compete with one another. It might be mutually exclusive, right? There might be two things that you can't take in the same build, and it's up to you to differentiate and decide which one would be better. But in the most scenarios, you can choose a lot of these S tier perks in pretty much every build. Now, there are some times where an S tier perk is not relevant on a certain build, right? If it's a perk that has something to do with electrocution, and you don't have any electrocution, then probably don't take that, right? Use your common sense there, but these are very highly powered talents that are going to give you a lot of bang for your buck. They're going to add something really meaningful to the class. They're going to give you more survivability, more damage, whatever it is. And yeah, you will not go wrong by picking these, provided it's the right build. Then we have the A tier perks. Anything that is A tier, it's just a solid baseline. You won't go wrong picking this up. These are like the generalist perks. Anything that's just like, oh, here's some extra toughness regen. You know, it might be just a nice quality of life thing to have. It's going to up your power level, and it's better, it's more preferable than anything else. Thinking of a couple already, but most of them are just kind of middle of the line in terms of that nice power boost. A little bit lower than that is B. This is where I start to be kind of indifferent, right? B is like, you know, it may or may not be useful in certain specific builds. If it's a build that really focuses on this one thing, then yes, this perk could be okay. It's not necessarily a bad perk, but you'd have to have a very specific build to make it work. And then C is where we get into the lower power things. This is a perk that requires you to have a specific niche build in order to get any value from it at all, right? It would be like, you know, maybe there's one weapon that this perk will actually provide value for, and no other weapon is going to get the value out of it. That would be what I mean by a C tier sort of thing. And then finally, D tier, these are the bottom of the barrel. Really no excuse for taking them. They are just, my opinion, at least poorly designed and need something to be changed about them in order to be chosen. And yeah, that's just like, don't take these. D for don't take them. I will try my best to not keep the positioning of these talents relevant to each other. The Skitarii of all classes is very difficult to discuss, like the positioning and how easy it is to get to certain talents. So I'll try to leave that out of the calculation. We'll just talk about the raw power, and that will leave you more free to path around the tree and sort of figure out where you need to go. So with that being said, let's go ahead and, well, I guess what I'll do is I'll kind of go out radially. We'll start in the center here, and what we're going to do is we're going to flip back and forth between our Games Lantern page here, and we're going to talk about what the talents are. So I guess this would be appropriate for a podcast style listening experience. If you wish, I'll read the talents out to you so you don't have to do too much extra legwork there, and then we'll discuss and we'll add our ranking. So we'll start with this inner rank here, which is Auto Repair Doctrines at the top. Replenish 3% toughness per second, increased by 0.5% per current charge. So this 3% per second, I've said many times, the consistent regeneration toughness talents in the game are always very good. The reason they are so good is because it doesn't wait for anything else to happen, right? Whether you are currently getting attacked or whether you're in between several attacks or whatever, this is going to be active and going to be constantly repairing your toughness. So if you take multiple shots, like pew 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 from an enemy, in between those shots, it's actually recuperating at the same time, which is going to lower that window where you can actually get hit and take damage. That's how Darktide works, right? And this one, it can get a lot of value because you can get up to 5 charges with this. That'll be 5.5%. And usually players are missing like 1 or 2 charges. So we would assume this value would be somewhere in the 4.5% range. That's really good for toughness per second with no other qualifiers. The veteran has one where he can't get hit with a melee attack, and then it gets 5% all the time from that, and that one is really, really good. So yeah, this is absolutely what I would consider a very solid S tier perk here. I include this in pretty much every build just for some nice consistency. This one is for certain S tier. I love that perk. That is an auto include in most of my builds, not least of which is because it's in a pretty good position in the tree. But yeah, going on from there, we have Binary Ballistics Protocol. Elite kills restore 15% toughness over 3 seconds. This is also, I would say, an S tier perk here. The Skitarii derives a lot of its value in regenerating toughness from like these toughness over time things. This is a very, very big like increase, 15% in just 3 short seconds. That's a good one. Actually, I don't know. That might be going a little bit too hard. I'm gonna give it an A. I'm actually just gonna give it an A. That might be coming out of the gate a little bit early and saying, "Oh yeah, this is S tier." I'm gonna give that one an A. It's very solid, right? But it's gonna be dependent on like whether or not there's elites around, and there are certain builds where maybe killing elites is a little bit harder than others. If you're running, however, if you're running Spheric Command, this little boy is going to pick up so many of these kills, which is going to keep this ticking all the time, which makes it really, really crazy good. But I think that this is just like, it's such a short duration. Compare this to the veterans. The veteran has that talent where he regenerates a bunch of over time, and that is awesome. I love that one on the veteran where he gets those elite kills and then he's regenerating for like the next 10 seconds, it feels like. He gets so much toughness out of that. This is a less toughness and over a shorter duration, but it's still very impactful. You should probably still be trying to get that into your build, in my opinion at least. Then we have down here, Servo Core Recharge Engine. Weak spot kills restore 5% toughness. Out of all of these, this is the weakest one. I will give this a B tier rank. Reason being is that this requires you to do a thing, right? This requires you to actually go and hit an enemy in the head and kill them. And you get 1 for, 1 charge or 1 instance of 5% toughness for this. In order for that to be effective, you have to be missing the toughness, right? So if you're missing toughness, then you can recuperate it, and you have to go on the offensive and actually get something done in order to do this. The best types of blessings, or the best types of toughness regenerators, are going all the time, no matter what happens, like this one right here. Then the next best ones are active a good portion of the time, and then the next best ones are active when you are just kind of playing defensively, and the weakest ones generally require you to directly get kills or directly do something to enemies, because a lot of times when you're like back dodging and running away, you need to get your toughness back, but you can't because you're being chased by a million enemies and you're getting shot. You can't get a headshot in the middle of all that. But yeah, so I'll give it a B tier. It's fine. I need to test this a little bit more. I do believe that the skull can get those headshot kills for you, though, if you get lucky. Okay, over here on the left side, this one is a little bit interesting. Then we have Power Redistribution Uplink. Critical hits restore 7.5% toughness and grant 15% toughness damage reduction over 3 seconds. I also feel that this is a bit of a B tier perk. The reason that I'm going to give this one a B tier here is because this is a pretty low amount of toughness over time. Sure, it's got 15% toughness damage reduction, but it's only for 3 seconds. And as I've said many times, personally, I think that a good Darktide like defensive buff, or really any buff in Darktide, starts at about 8 seconds. 3 seconds for 2.5% toughness per second and some toughness damage resistance. The chances you're going to get hit in those 3 seconds, unless you are constantly critting, is a lot lower. So this one's definitely the weakest of the regenerative things that's on the tree, I think. Although it does have that toughest damage resistance built in, and I think the reason they put it here is because it's gatekeeping this area of the tree, which is really, really strong. So they don't want you getting over here for too cheap. So there you go. That's the first ring there. And now let us make our way. We're going to make our way out here. We're going to go up to the left and talk about this little talent right here, which is going to be our first real stinker of the reading. So target prioritization psalms, specialists that get within 12.5 meters of you are marked. So if you've never seen this in practice before, let's go ahead and demonstrate it real quick. I can actually just go into a solo. Let's go into, well, we can do Casalon's Drum, that's fine. And yeah, I literally did not ever see this in action before, and then all of a sudden one day I looked around and I was like, wait, why are enemies blue? So yeah, when you have this active, this doesn't tag enemies, to be clear. It's not tagging enemies, it's just highlighting them so that you can see them more easily. And I mean, there it is, right? See how he's blue? That's it. That's all it does. So it doesn't activate your new sphere command or anything like that. It's just a blue highlight if they get within 12.5 meters. This is, to me, a complete waste of a talent point, right? And worse yet, I said I wouldn't go out of my way to like make stuff penalized for its positioning, but I hate where this is positioned. I really do. There's so many times where I want to get over here or I want to cross this gap from this direction and get this way, and I can't because of this stupid thing that is going to provide me next to nothing, right? I can't even really see this being all that useful for like new players, because even if the targets are marked when they're within 12.5 meters, I don't think that's really helping them to like orient themselves in combat, right? It's probably going to distract them more than anything. So yeah, this one is a straight up D tier. I really had higher hopes for it when I saw it. I was like, oh, is it going to like make the skull do some sort of thing? But it's like, dang, that sucks. That really, really sucks. All right, let's go on to this little red node here. This is called Capacitor Reclamation Loop. Hitting 3 or more enemies with an attack restores 1% capacitance. So this can apply to shoving 3 or more enemies. It can apply to cleaving 3 or more enemies. And every time that your attack hits 3 enemies, and it's 1 time per attack, you'll get 1% capacitance. This can add up pretty quickly, especially into hordes, although it really isn't all that fast in the grand scheme of things. And you have to remember that there's a lot of combats where you're just not going to be able to line up 3+ enemies. There are, if you're playing a sniper style build or something, it's not arc rifle. You can't hit 3+ enemies in the, in one shot. So yeah, this is going to be the weakest of these regeneration perks. It's still okay, but it's definitely not on the par with the other ones out here. So I'm going to give this one a B tier. This is, if I'm going to pick out of all these which ones I would choose and which ones I wouldn't, this one is going to get the lowest rankings. The other ones generate a lot of value pretty consistently. This is like only sometimes are you going to be able to get that value. When you do, it's all right though. It can boost it a lot. And right next to it, we have one way you can get additional value out of this, which is to use some more cleave with Shockland Breach Protocol. Pushing an enemy grants 50% increased melee cleave for 8 seconds. This is a very good perk. This is a very, very good perk. So melee cleave is valuable, obviously, and it's extra valuable on this class because this class has a lot of weapons that don't have a lot of cleave to them, like the Arc Maul, like the Shock Maul. Getting through multiple enemies with those is kind of troublesome. And this also applies that cleave to Cord Claw, which means that your Cord Claw, instead of getting hung up on the first melee enemy that it reaches, or first metal enemy that it reaches, it'll go right through them too and deal that slashing damage to a bunch of enemies, so many more enemies. I really, really like this perk. It's very good as long as you are mixing in some pushes, although it's not that useful on like every single weapon. I would say that the Transonic Blades really don't need it. You're probably not going to get a whole lot of value out of it on our lovely Mars Power Sword either, nor the Dagger, but there are certain weapons that definitely benefit from it. It's still really strong and easy to keep up, so I'm going to give it an A tier here. And then we got a very interesting one, Galvanized Coating. You are stun immune and have 15% damage resistance, taking melee damage spends 5% capacitance. So this is a really, really good perk. This is, I'm just going to go ahead and say this is an S tier. And the reason that this is getting that S tier is because stun immunity is insanely valuable in Darktide. Stun immunity, or like being stunned, is one of the ways that you can die in this game, where when your toughness is broken, or when you're slammed or staggered or otherwise by enemies, your character flinches and you lose control. And it's not that big a thing. Like it doesn't feel that big in the moment, but a half second of lost control because you got stunned can be dying, and not getting that inconvenience allows you to keep on the attack patterns that you're in and just go about your thing and not get flinched. Being flinched at the wrong time is death. So that's a really good benefit on its own. 15% damage resistance on its own is also really, really strong, because this is damage resistant. So it reduces all damage to you. So you have your toughness, right? And you have your health. It's going to reduce all the damage that's dealt to you at a baseline first, and then all that stuff goes into account. And then taking melee damage spends 5% capacitance. This sounds bad, but 5% capacitance is such a low amount. On average, if we have this talent right here, we're generating 3% capacitance per second for, just by standing around, right? So like this is 1.6 seconds of just literally doing nothing in order to get it back. If you're doing anything else, you're getting that back easily. So that's not even an issue. And spending for one particular of these up here for redline capacitors, if you drop a charge by getting a hit in melee, if it knocks you below that threshold, you'll get a redline capacitor stack, which not half bad, right? So yeah, this one is super strong. If you're playing like a melee tanky build, this is definitely the way to go. That 5% capacitance, don't even worry about it. If this just said you are stun immune and have 15% damage resistance, I mean, just read it as that. It's S tier beyond belief. So yeah, that's a super solid one. One of the best ways to get tanky is the Skitty. Electro Strike Conduit. I said before the recording that I think this might be my favorite blue perk on the tree, and the reason being this one is so versatile. Every weapon on the class can use it generally, and this critical hit, it gives a real electrocution, like the enemy is paralyzed for 2 seconds and they're counted as stunned during that duration. So you get all sorts of benefits from that, but this really allows a Skitarii to open up another avenue for weapons that don't have electricity built into them. You wouldn't have a way to trigger stuff like System Shock or Retribution Conduit, right? But this single talent gives you the option to run Dagger, run the Transonic Blades, use those weapons and synergize with electricity damage, which is really cool. So I actually really love this. It feels in practice like it is actually very nice, because it's a lot of survivability for things like Transonic Blades. They don't have a whole lot of stagger, right? So when a Crusher is coming up to hit you, you would be like, you have to dodge out of the way, or like the Combat Blade, you have to dodge and get ready to dodge his attack. But if you have a high enough crit chance, you just go up and you start poking that motherfucker, and he's paralyzed now. He can't do anything, so you just get to go and shank him up. And thank you, Jolly Bon Jovi, for the 2 gifts. I really appreciate it. And Lico and Mile High for Prime subs. Appreciate you guys. So yeah, this one is super good. I adore this on crit builds. I don't necessarily need it all the time. Like I didn't take this on my meta Skitarii sort of build because I was already running Shock Maul there, and most of the time those enemies are stunned and CC'd anyway, or I can use the Shock Prod if it's an enemy that I can't stun normally. But yeah, this is super good. And hey, we got our first ass of the tier list. Isn't that awesome? And we're going to continue that S tier ranking thing with our next up capacitance node here, which is also an S tier node. That is Augmented Power Cycle. Generate 1% capacitance each second. So if you are unaware, the base capacitance generation for this class is 2% per second. This is a 50% increase to your base. Think of it like this. If you have a 30-minute game, right, that's 1,800 seconds. This is therefore 1,800% capacitance. That means that you are generating, if you have no generation multipliers, right? Even if you have no generation multipliers like the stacked up power overload with static capacitor drain or redline capacitors, you're generating 18 ultimates with Cord Claw Strike. Then add in the fact that you can discount the cost of your charges by 12% by taking cooldown reduction curios, and you're up to like 20 and a half extra ultimates or extra Cord Claws. And then if you take into account that you can get 25% more out of this right here from having redline or having static capacitor drain, well, then you're up at what? 25 extra ultimates over the course of the game. Or what would that be in terms of voltaic emitters? 8 extra fully charged voltaic emitters just from this one talent point. That's nuts. And it's going all the time too, which is, we addressed, is the best, because then you're getting it back passively when you're out of combat. And there's a lot of traversal in Darktide when like you aren't actively fighting stuff. So definitely got to be an S tier perk there. And then coming over here, we got Mobian Conductor, which is 15% damage for 10 seconds on ability use. This is very strong. This is super strong because when you use your abilities for this class, you know, Cord Claw, you can use it all the time, so you get lots of uptime. Voltaic Emitter and Advanced Combat Doctrines both are entering into like, okay, it's go time. Like it's power mode where we're gonna like pull up our you know, our big boy pants and we're gonna start murdering stuff. And this is a good time to have this activate. 10 seconds on ability use with how fast this class can generate capacitance and use abilities. That's a lot of damage. It is a lot of damage. I think this is one of the like more guaranteed damage nodes. I would say it's definitely better on Cord Claw Strike than it is on Voltaic Emitter and Advanced Combat Doctrines because of the frequency with which you can activate Cord Claw, but it's still really solid. I don't think it quite rises to like S tier, not like another one that I'm thinking of, but I'll give it an A. It's a very solid A. Definitely a great damage boost, and grabbing this little corner right here is something I do on most builds. And then we're on to Threat Detection Imperative. Range kills reduce toughness damage taken by 4% for 8 seconds, stacks 5 times, stacks decay 1 at a time. So here is where we first need to talk about the elephant in the room, or the servo skull in the room as it would be. The freaking servo skull, right? The servo skull has an interaction with a lot of talents on this class. He counts as range kills for you. So this right here, it seems like, oh, I would never get this up if I'm not using range. I'm a melee character. But just having this point, taking the basic servo skull, he is able to kill small gunners, like the black armored gunners, in 2 hits on Havoc 40 with that perk. So yeah, like he can very easily get 1 kill every 8 seconds. And the fact this only falls off 1 stack at a time, you're going to have on average 4 stacks of this the entire game. Like this has like a 90% uptime with him. So yeah, this is really good. I think that this one, I got to give this an S tier. I think so. Like that's just 20% toughness damage reduction. And it's so consistent. It's a 90% uptime. It feels like it's an S tier. I don't know. Maybe it's, yeah, I'm going to give it an S. Like a light S. But yeah, this is super good as long as Skull stays in the meta, right? Yeah, here I can show you some uptime right here if you wish to see. Let's check. Here we go. We'll go to, I think this was, he was playing with Reginald last night. That's not using it. Where is it? Here we go. Yeah, here we go. So here we go, Relay Station TRS 150. So look at this uptime here, right? We had Threat Detection Imperative up here at 92.8% uptime with an average stacks of 4.33. This is what happens when you are using Nospheric Command. You're going to have that guy going all the time. Now, on some of these, it's a little bit less because we were getting absolutely like mollywopped. But yeah, even in this one, 79.4. Then I swapped Ogren, which probably doesn't have a very high uptime on that perk. But yeah, this is a really solid perk. Ton of uptime, very solid, and the skull does it for you passively. So yeah, that's a very valuable one. Then we'll have below that 25% ammo right here with Ammo Cell Augury. 25% ammo reserve, that's not half bad. A lot of the weapons on this class do like a little bit extra ammo. A tier, I guess. I mean, you know, this is very solid. 25% extra shots on this boy goes a long way. So that actually ends up being a lot for the arc rifle, specifically for the arc rifle, by the way. When you have this boosts your base of your ammo enough that the 1% of your max ammo reserve starts to replenish 3 per every 15 seconds instead, which is very nice. So yeah, I like ammo cell augury, so I take that on certain builds just to have a little bit extra shooting to be able to do, because this class, unlike other classes, I really do feel like he is definitely incentivized to whip out his range weapon every now and then and actually crack up a couple shots. I find myself using a lot of my pistol and a lot of my arc rifle when I'm playing Skitarii, as opposed to like Zealot, where I will very rarely pull out my secondary on the Zealot unless it's absolutely necessary. Easy, man. Just here to say hi. All right, then we have down here this next capacitance generation perk. This one is called Reactor Coil Recharge. Weak spot kills generate 2% capacitance. This is also S tier. This is I think this is probably tied or very nearly tied with our friend up here with the 1% every second. This is a massive burst generator, right? If you've played with transonic blades, if you've played with the shock maul or the arc maul, you know what I'm talking about, because one big cleaving swing horizontally at head level at a horde, you just watch your capacitance go because you just killed 5 enemies with this. And the baseline generation for capacitance when you claim a kill is 2% for regular enemies and 4% for elites. So for if you can just aim at heads, right, which is not that hard to do with a lot of the Skitarii weapons, which are very headshot like friendly, then you will get double the capacitance on all regular kills and 50% extra on elite kills. That's a big deal. And this can also, I believe, be triggered by the servo skull if he happens to land a headshot, which is pretty funny. But yeah, this is a massive increase to your generation of capacitance. I kind of feel like you need this one in order to get your capacitance back up, because this one can only trigger over, we'll get to it in a second, but this one can only trigger a certain percentage over time. This one, however, if you have a nice dense horde and you just farm it, you will get your entire capacitance back in like no time, which is amazing. So yeah, this is definitely an S tier here. And beyond that, we have our lovely 25% headshot node here with Sure Shot Cogitator Sync. Weak spot damage, it's not bad. It's not the greatest on a lot of weapons in this class. There are many weapons on this class that do not have a very notable headshot multiplier. And that's why I'm going to rank this a little bit lower. If this was like Zealot or Skitarii, or not Skitarii, what did I say? Zealot or Hive Scum or somebody, weak spot damage would be a big deal. But on this class in particular, the arc rifle doesn't do headshots. The phosphor pistol has a very low headshot rating already, and this does not help very much because it's so low at a baseline. So yeah, this weak spot thing is like mid at that, but it's still really good when you're using headshots. So I'll give it a B tier, just because it's only going to be eligible for being valuable with headshots. And I'm not getting a weak spot kill every 2 seconds, except for when I'm in the middle of a combat and I can get, 4 weak spot kills in 1 second, right? It's a immediate burst refill. If you only have passive regeneration like this, or a capped amount of regeneration like the 1.25% per second you get from the crit here, you can't refill very quickly. You're still capped at about 5% of your capacitance per second, and then add in the direct amount you get from kills. This is doubling the amount you get from kills. So just, the denser enemies are, the more value it provides. And I'm telling you, like, if you go in and you just happen to do a slash that hits 3 enemies in the head, that got you 6% bonus back that you wouldn't have gotten before. It adds up really quickly. It's a great way to build it back up on hordes and stuff. So that, yeah, this is definitely a capacitance builder. I think like these two, easily just take those 2 every time. There's not too many talents that are too bad in between them either. Then we'll go on to this one down here, Progressive Plating Matrix. grant 2.5% toughness damage reduction for 5 seconds, stack 6 times, max 1 stack per attack. This is also an S tier perk. These sort of perks on the Skitarii, they add up, right? We had 20% toughness damage reduction here. We have 15% here, and you'd be like, oh, well, this is only triggering 1 time per hit. You're going to have to hit 6 times in order to get this to be fully stacked. You know who also can hit for you, though? It's the Servo Skull, because every time the Servo Skull attacks, he will refresh this and he'll stack it. So if you're running New Spheric Command, as soon as you tag one enemy, you're immediately a 15% toughness damage reduction, and it never falls off, pretty much. It just stays up the entire game. So it's just super free, and damage reduction like this, because we're regenerating constantly with so much stuff on the Skitarii, is incredibly valuable. It's incredibly valuable because, like, yeah, the enemy will hit you, you'll take less damage, and then you'll sweat it off. You'll just generate your shields back, no problem. Beyond that, we have this next talent here, Adaptive Combat Calibration. Gain 30% melee cleave while above, 50% toughness, and 30% melee impact while below. I believe this is an A tier perk. The 30% melee cleave is very nice, and I mean, melee impact can be good to save yourself when you're in a bad spot. But yeah, 30% melee cleave to be aggressive is nice. I like that it flips like that. That's actually quite nice. Yeah, the 30% melee cleave for a single node, not half bad. It's in a pretty good position as well. So yeah, I'll give this maybe just a B. It doesn't feel quite as powerful as the next tier up of stuff. I'll just give it a B. It's not quite that powerful, but it's still pretty good, right? Let's say it's pretty good. Then we have over here our next capacitance, our last basic capacitance generator, which is Flux Conduit Buildup. Critical hits generate 5% capacitance over 4 seconds. So this is very valuable, right? This is a lot of capacitance generation. It is 5%, but it takes 4 seconds to get it. It has a cap. You can't like continually refresh it. It doesn't stack. So you're limited to getting 1 trigger of this every 4 seconds, and it'll refresh its duration. So if you're critting once every 4 seconds, this is basically, you know, more than doubling your basic capacitance regeneration, and you don't even have to get the kill to do it. However, it does have, you know, a theoretical cap on how fast you can generate, which is, you know, 1.25% per second, which is not all that fast in the grand scheme of things. But so I'll give this an A tier. I think this is a little bit lower in terms of the priority over these others. Obviously, like if you're going crit, you'll probably just take this because capacitance is like pretty nice to have. But you should probably take this and headshot, you know, and headshot kills or whatever, right? Because this can generate these two right here can boost your smooth regeneration over time, and then you need a burst regeneration. So these two are burst regeneration from hitting a horde or from getting a headshot kill, and these two are constant regeneration from getting a crit or from standing around with your thumb up your ass. Then next up we have this node right here, which is 6% crit or 10% when you're at 0 charges. I think that this is pretty valuable. I'll give this an A tier. The reason that this is a little bit more valuable in this class than it would be on any other class, this class doesn't have, on a lot of weapons, a lot of crit, right? He needs some extra crit, and this is the only node on the entire tree, other than one keystone, the one down here, that can give you critical chance. So if you want to build for crits, if you want to, say for instance, get this node up here, the shock on crit thing to work, then you're gonna want to get some crit, and this also enables this right here. So like theoretically, if you have a shock maul or something, the shock maul doesn't have any bonuses to crit, right? You can put 5% as a perk. Your class has about 7.5% base. This is a 50% increase to your critical chance from that perspective with 6%. And if you're using something like the voltaic emitter up here, then you're going to jump all your charges. You're going to go to 10% sometimes, although you probably won't stay in that state for very long. But yeah, it's a very nice. Crits are good. The crits are really good. They're good in lots of weapons of this class. They're good in the arc maul. They're really good in the arc rifle because the arcs can crit as well. So we like crits. They're not like outstanding, and it's not an outstanding, like a huge number like certain other classes get, but hey, it's pretty good. And then next up, we have Residual Current Buffer, 10% toughness damage reduction increased by 2.5% per current charge. you know, not a half bad perk either, right? This is just another, like, pretty solid 10. It'll probably be around 12.5% toughness damage reduction. It's in a fairly easy place to get. I usually end up taking this, and the reason, actually, I have to give this an S tier. Actually, I have to give this an S tier because this one saves our bacon, right? The reason this is an S tier, I was thinking about giving it an A because I don't feel like it's quite as much value as the potential 20% here or the guaranteed like 15% here of toughness damage reduction. However, if this talent didn't exist here, I would have to go through this stupid D tier thing right here, right? This allows us to come this way and go up here to get to red line capacitors, because this talent is definitely way better than the talent right behind it. So yeah, we can go this way instead of coming up here and then going across, and this is just way more valuable. So yeah, it's just the best path opener. There's only 2 paths to get to red line capacitors. You have to come up this way and go this way, or come around and then go across like this. And this one saves us from touching this stupid highlight thing. So yeah, I'll give it an S tier just for being a savior of a talent point. And yeah, there you go. Okay, so our second ring is done. We're starting to build out. And now, let's see, I guess we can do another, yeah, we got another full concentric ring. We'll just keep going like that, and then we'll do one more, and then we'll do our keystones and abilities. So we can follow the pattern we did last time, and we'll go out to Sequence Charge. Gained 12.5% strength on gaining a charge, lasting 10 seconds. This is very, very good. Let me show you the uptime here. If we have Sequence Charge here somewhere, this has 33.8% uptime on my build here. And then let's look at another just random sample. We had, where is it? Did I not have it on this build? Did I have a terrible? Oh, here it is, only 17.7. I wonder what I was doing in this one. Oh, this is a 2-minute game. Okay, we died very quickly. That's what happened, I think. Oh yeah, we got overrun a bunch of times. There we go, 41-minute game. That's a good sample. Sequence Charge. I'm not seeing it. There it is, 40.2%. Right, that's a pretty good amount. And this is one of those talents where you can min-max it. If you're being a good player and you're thinking about your charges pretty consistently, you could actually generate a lot of this, like, for your character. Because if you have New Spheric Command or something, you can ride the line and wait for your power to dip down, and then like wait for your power to get to like just over a threshold, then use New Spheric to drop it below, and then wait to get back up above the threshold over and over again, right? So New Spheric Command works amazingly with this because you can just constantly dip below that power threshold. So yeah, I like this one a lot. I don't think it's like the strongest in the world. As you can see, it only has a 33% uptime, but hey, it's something. So I'm gonna give this one an A tier, and yeah, we'll call it that. Now over here we have a mystery, you know, Salvation Doctrine. Who knows, right? It's impossible to take this talent because of this stupid thing right here. This would mean that I would have to take target prioritization psalms and basically tax myself a free node for 20% damage resistance while reviving an ally, gain 20% revive speed. You know, I'll give it a C tier for being somewhat usable. Well, maybe I'll actually clone this C tier. I'll give it a C tier for being like moderately useful, but you would never take this because you can't work backwards from over here, and you would have to waste a talent point on this node in order to take this. Yeah, as it currently stands, kind of junk. So yeah, I don't like that very much. We can go on to right here, which is called, I never remember the name of this one, Voltaic Burst. Staggering enemies with a push applies electrocution, dealing damage and stunning enemies, 15-second cooldown. So about this talent, there's one thing I really don't like about this talent, and that is the like the way it actually looks. It is not very impressive to me. What did I put in here? Oh, that was this one. Ah, yeah, there it is. Okay, cool. So here's Voltaic Burst, right? If I spawn a little enemy. There we go. So he gets staggered, and he's paralyzed like that. So yeah, that's Voltaic Burst. The thing that like throws me off about this is that there's no burst to Voltaic Burst, right? You would think that it would like actually show the thing happening, but oftentimes you can't even tell what's going on. Like, would you have noticed these guys are actually paralyzed? There's no electricity on them or anything. So I would really love like some sort of visual display that this is actually going on. Now, as for whether or not this is like any good, it can be. It can be. It just depends on if it's up at the right time. The problem that I have with this talent is it is a 50-second cooldown, and that on a lot of weapons, I'm using my like push to use push stabs and stuff, right? I'm pushing enemies away to make space in combat just passively. And so this will just trigger sometimes when I don't need it at all. And then on the targets that I really need to electrocute, I can't push them. They're too big and meaty. So like maulers and ragers and stuff, they are really, really hard to push. So yeah, this is probably a little bit lower for me. And it's definitely like an extra node to take that you really don't need, I would say. I think this class does just fine at staggering enemies that are in its face without like some force electrocution. Yeah, so I'll hit that with a... I'll hit it with a B tier. It definitely is like relatively powerful. It's just like, okay, maybe if you're going for a specific sort of build, you could take it there. But next up we have an absolute S tier banger. That is our lovely Shockline Breach Protocol. No, that's not right. System Shock, which is, you know, good game. Electrocuting enemy applies 4 stacks of 2.5% brittleness to them. That's a 40% brittleness debuff if you hit them with 4 things of shock. And there's a number of things in this class, obviously, they can apply shock. So if you had the crit on your weapon with Electric Strike Conduit and you're electrocuting enemies, you're going to shock them. If you are using the shock maul and the taser mode, you're going to shock them and immediately stack up to the 40%. If you're arcing off of them, either with the arc rifle, we can demonstrate here. Unpause. All these enemies don't have that, but like, watch this guy, right? Or watch anybody with a health bar. Don't hit me. See the 10% on them? We can do this as well. So that's adding brittleness on these enemies. It's super free, and the arc rifle is already such a good freaking weapon. The arc maul, the shock maul are good weapons, and this enables every other class or every other weapon to do it. So this is super valuable. It's one of the things that you can provide the whole team as Skitarii, is you can guarantee put brittleness on stuff. A lot of other classes, in order to bring brittleness to the field, you have to run a Hive Scum with you know, some purple toxin on his blade. He can do that. You could have like Thunderstruck or whatever it's called, right? There's not that many other sources of 40% brittleness that are this easily stacked, and this can apply damage both for you and for the whole team. I love this thing. That's an absolute S tier. Then we have Entropic Transfer, 12% toughness over 4 seconds on electrocuting an enemy. I think this is a lot lower down than I initially thought it would be. It is, you know, it's some toughness over time, but it's only 3% and per second, and it's not all that easy to get the benefit of it. It also seems to not trigger on the impact electrocution, like slamming an enemy with a shock maul or slamming an enemy with an arc maul will like give them the electrocuted status, but it won't actually zap them. I think it only applies in actual zaps. So I think this is a little bit less useful. It's still pretty good in terms of defenses, but I think it's only like probably a B tier in terms of that that power ranking, if I could grab this at all. Okay, interesting. There we go. So yeah, I'd say B tier there. It's also just kind of, at this point, superfluous because there's so much other toughness regeneration in this tree that I don't necessarily know if I need it. And then we have Weakness Analysis Doctrine, 10% damage for 8 seconds when hitting electrocuted, soul blaze, burning, bleeding, or toxin inflict enemy with a melee or ranged attack. So it's just 10% damage, like pretty much all the time. I will give this, I don't know. I'm kind of tempted to give this a C tier. It's not that bad though. It's just like, this is a low number. This is 10% is low. I mean, it's 10% like a lot of the time, right? But this doesn't apply to, you know, your skull or anything, right? So it could apply when the skull shoots them, I suppose. But yeah, it's 10% damage, but 10% damage on this class isn't really, yeah, I don't know. It was 15, this would be amazing. 10, I'm like, I don't know, I've already got so much stacking damage from everywhere else. And yeah, so I'll give it a B. It's a solid B. Ablative Wards, though, very, very interesting talent over here. I love this thing. 90% corruption resistance. Every 20 seconds, take 1 corruption damage. So the way this works is that the corruption damage you take is scaled. You are actually technically taking 20 corrupt, or what it would be, 10 corruption resistance. Or you're taking 10 corruption, Jesus. You're taking 10 corruption every 20 seconds, but the 90% resistance drops it down to 1. So yeah, it's 1 no matter what, basically. And a lot of people have been like, you know, commenting, being like, have you tried running this with the corruption resistance curios? And I'm like, sorry to burst your bubble, but it's multiplicative. So if you're taking corruption resistance curios with this, and you're taking 3 45%, or 3 15% that add up to 45 corruption resist, you're ending up getting a 4.5% reduction, which doesn't actually do anything to the 1 corruption damage that you're still taking every 20 seconds. However, this, when combined with Zealot, for obvious reasons, is nuts, like especially on Havoc, because you can just completely ignore the extra corruption damage from stuff. You take way less damage from bursters and all sorts of nonsense. 1/3 of all melee damage you take in Havoc is converted to corruption, which can straight kill you. This just says, no, I'm not taking 30%, I'm taking 3%, which is nothing. And then you'll sweat it off because the Zealot has his aura up. So as long as you got a Zealot on your team, it's really, really good. Even outside of that, it's still pretty dang good, as long as you can move quite quickly. If you are taking, 20 minutes to clear 1/3 of the map, then it's not going to be great. But I'll give it an A tier because it's super useful. And it's definitely a great flex node. It's one of the things that makes this class have like a little bit of flexibility and can play into certain Havoc modifiers very nicely. And it makes you unafraid of like Burgle slime and stuff too. You can just like stand right in it, fight demon hosts. I don't give a fuck about a demon host and their corruption shit. Doesn't hurt me at all. Then we have precision combat augers over here. 15% damage for your next attack on successful dodge. I'm gonna go with C tier here. I'm going to go with C. It's 1 attack, right, on dodge. So you dodge, and then you get 1 attack that does 15% more damage. If this is 25% more damage, okay, I might get out of bed for it. But at 15, it's just not very much for 1 singular attack. Compare that to the Zealot, who gets like 50% extra finesse for however many seconds on dodging, and just all sorts of buffs around like in different classes for dodging. Yeah, it's just not good. Also, if you're coming up here, there's an obvious choice to make, and it's this one right here, because superior defense engrams, range kills grant stacks, each stack replenishes 1% toughness per second, max 5 stacks, lasts 8 seconds, is triggered by the skull, as you might imagine, and so therefore it's going to have crazy uptime, and it's a constant regenerative effect that is going to print a bunch of toughness for you, and it's just super, super easy and comfy. So if we look back at my uptime here, and we look at a little game. Let's see. Where's my superior defense engrams? Wait, did I have it in this build? Oh, here it is. 35.7. That's not very good. Oh wait, this is a 2-minute game. I need to keep looking at this. Where's the game where we actually didn't die instantaneously? Here we go. Okay, so here we go. There it is. 80% of the game, I had an average of 3.9 stacks. 80% of combat, not of the game, but 80% of combat. We had, almost 4 stacks. That's a lot of toughness, and it's constantly. So it's super easy, and we're coming up this way anyway, because we're going to pick up Hybrid Combat Covenant, as we'll talk about in a second. So yeah, I'm going to give this a very respectable, I'm going to give it an A tier. I'm going to give this an A tier. It can, if you're not using the skull, it's going to be hard to keep up, and it does fall off all at once, right? You lose all the stacks at one time, which does kind of suck. But it's still really, really good. It's definitely better than this as far as an option if you're coming up this way. And this is a very, very solid node here, as we'll talk about in a second. All right, we're moving on to Assassination Protocols. Increased range damage versus Ogryns, Monstrosities, and Captains by 25%. D tier, I think, yeah. So this is the reason this is not good is because it's range damage. Captains don't like care about range damage. Their shields take fuck all for range damage. Their bodies take even less. This damage does not increase the damage of your servo skull, so it's only your damage, right? And the arcs off of the arc rifle don't count as range damage. The burns from the phosphor pistol don't count as range damage. It's only the direct damage that you're dealing with the range attacks, right? And it's only to captains, where was it? Captains, monstrosities, and ogrins. Okay, so one of the types of ogrins is completely clad in carapace, so you can't fucking hurt him at all, so he's not getting shot. Then the next one has a bulwark shield, so you're probably not shooting him with a gun either. So you can shoot reapers, you can shoot monstrosities, and you're probably not going to shoot captains because you're better off to melee them. So yeah, it's just about killing bosses a little bit faster and reapers, I guess. Just put unyielding on your weapon, like if you want to kill those targets, and then move on. So yeah, don't take this. Galvanic marking ray, though, this one's what's up. Okay, so this, if they fix the arc rifle, if they fix arcing to actually trigger as range kills, because right now what happens is if the arc damage from shooting something with an arc rifle hits a target, it will steal a kill, right? But galvanic marking array here is so disgustingly good because this is, of course, triggered by the servo skull. So servo skull gets these kills, and of course the servo skull can kill elites, right? You tag him on an elite, and he immediately, with Nospheric command, he immediately goes, and they're just dead, right? So find a shotgunner, find a gunner, drop them dead, get yourself 5% stacking damage for 15 seconds, and these stacks fall off one at a time. So this takes a full minute to lose all of these. This is such a crazy uptime for a class that has an easy time picking specials, or picking it rather, it's just elites, right? But picking elites is so easy for this class. And yeah, just snipe a couple elites, and then every 15 seconds or so, not even every 15 seconds, right? Because if you let this, right, consider this, you go to 4 stacks, you have 20%, right? Then, if you happen to forget about getting range kills and you wait 15 seconds, you go down to 3 stacks. And then you wait 13 more seconds and you go, oh shoot, I'm about to run out. And you get 1 range kill on an elite, you go back to 4 stacks. You don't lose another one. So you can wait like almost 30 seconds before you lose, before you go down anymore, and just jump right back to 4. It's super good. Yeah, so this is a great consistent damage, and it's all damage, right? It's not range damage. It increases all of your damage, which is amazing. So great one right there. S tier for sure. Gunsmith. This is a very interesting one. Gain 15% reload speed. Additionally, after not shooting for 5 seconds, each second spent not shooting reloads 7.5% of your clip from your ammo reserve. This is more useful than I initially thought it would be. So yeah, like passively reloading in the background is very nice for plasma gun, for arc rifle, for stuff like that. Yeah, I like it a lot, especially because where it's going, right? It's going into this range. Honestly, when I'm playing with like range builds, I end up taking both of these because it's good in a pinch when you do need to reload, but it's also good when you are going to go into melee and you're just going to passively let it reload in the background because it doesn't take very long. 7.5% per second, what's that, 12 seconds to get a full reload on the magazine? And so yeah, that's quite nice to be able to get some extra stuff done. You can go out there and melee and mix it up while this is going on. So yeah, not a half bad one. Definitely, I think this is definitely my favorite like backpack reload perk in the game. I'll give this one an A tier, provided you are running a weapon that can benefit from it greatly, like the plasma, the arc rifle. If you're running like the revolver, just reload the revolver manually, man. Like that's too short a time. Like don't be waiting 12 seconds to get the. Don't wait 12 seconds to get the revolver reloaded in your backpack. 1 bullet per second after 5 seconds or whatever. Yeah, that's gonna take forever. Actually, this probably rounds up, right? So it would only take 11 seconds. You'd have to wait 5 seconds. And then 6 more seconds, right? So yeah, that's how that. Let's actually hold on. Real time testing. We don't want to talk. We don't want to talk some guff. Okay, let's put it on this one. Take this talent. Just whatever. Fuck it. Destroying my old builds. Just cannibalizing my old builds to show stuff in the moment. Guy gonna hit me. Oh god. Okay. Okay, now we wait. And 5, and there we go. one? Oh yeah, it does. Nice. Okay, so yeah, there you go. Oh, one thing I also really like about this, by the way, that I'll say, I like that it reloads when it's in your hand too. You don't have to have it put away. You can pull the gun out and just hold it out and be ready to fire as soon as it's reloaded too. So yeah, you don't have to like keep it hidden in order to reload, which is nice. I don't know how that works, like magic, I guess, but it's very comfy feeling. Target neutralization feedback over here. Weak spot kills grant stun and suppression immunity for 4 seconds. This is not very good. I'm gonna give this a D tier. I think this is another very bad perk on this tree. Yeah, I can't foresee a situation in which I'm using this. Yeah, so this is only, first of all, as I've talked about previously, the good duration for a buff in Darktide is 8 seconds. That's where it starts. Anything lower than that, and you're too short, it's not going to be up when you need it. 4 seconds is like, you know, you shoot an enemy, you get a headshot kill, and then you move around to get another shot, and that 4 seconds falls off. And you have to get a kill for it to be active, which really sucks. So if you can't land the first hit, you're going to be suppressed. I mean, it works with melee too, but yeah. And also, it gives you stun suppression, which you should just be taking galvanized coating instead. That's a way better. This is insane. Like, you know, for the same amount of less investment, honestly, because this node is this guaranteed auto pick, so it's a 1-point node for galvanized. Just take this, then you've got half of this benefit the entire game. So this is literally just suppression immunity for 4 seconds of weak spot kills. Terrible. Don't take that. Sustained Assault Doctrine, though, do take this. 3% damage on successful melee attack for 8 seconds, stacks 5 times, 15% damage, right? If you're in melee mode, and I think that if you're playing melee, you should probably be like coming this way anyway, right? If you're going solely melee, or come around this way and go on that little arc there. This is one of my favorite little adventure detours to take. I think if we look at my builds here, that'll be reflected in there. Let me see. Not that one, but I know I've got them somewhere here. One of these. I swear. There, here we go. This is the one I was playing with today. The arc thing. That video went live, so you can go check that out. But yeah, that little path right there, very nice. You don't need the extra 5% on weak spot kills. You're regenerating so much all the time. And then you get the progressive plating matrix into Sustained Assault Doctrine. Very nice. 15% damage buff, and it is all damage, by the way, which is quite nice. So that applies to your burns and your bleeds and all that good stuff. And it scales off of attack speed. So yeah, I'll give that I'll give that an S. I think that is worth an S. That's just a 15% all damage when you're in melee. It doesn't apply to your service skull, but 15% all damage when you're melee and stuff. Very good if you can get over here and get into melee, because a lot of times I feel like I'm spending all my nodes elsewhere. Next to that, though, we have this 75% impact on pushes when you're at or above 75% stamina. I thought this was going to be better than it was, is what I'll say. I thought this was going to pan out to being like, I thought this was going to pan out to being something like really impactful. But yeah, it's because it's only triggering when you're at or above 75% stamina, and this class has really bad stamina regeneration. You'll be out of stamina like a lot. You can even take stamina regeneration, and it's because the base stamina regeneration is so low and the delay is so long. He's no Hive Scum, right? Hive Scum is like, his stamina's all coming back like crazy. This class can get gassed, and you can push and then be below that threshold and it won't do anything. I thought the synergy here and here with the Voltaic Burst was going to be amazing, but nah. I want this to also increase like the radius or something, so that it goes out a little bit more. So yeah, I'm gonna give this one a B tier. I guess. No. It's not even. No, I'll give it a C. I'll give it a C. It's just too niche. Like most stuff you can already push. I think this might meet a couple of thresholds, but only it's like got several different qualifiers. And fancy, this is my Photoshop. It knows it's going to be used like this. We always go to the Photoshop void to yap. That's what we do. I do want, yeah, I want this node to give an extra radius for the explosion, or for the push, and I want this node to have a explosion that like shows you when it's happening, that so you can see which enemies are actually stunned, because right now it does nothing and it's completely quiet. It feels weird. Okay, uncapped arrestor here. Successful melee attacks grant 2.5% melee attack speed for 3 seconds, stacking 5 times. I think this is A tier. You know, it is one of the only attack speed nodes on the class, which is very good because a lot of the weapons here do need some attack speed. The fact that it only lasts for 3 seconds really, really pains me, right? The other classes in the game get 10% flat just for standing around. They can just start the combat at 10%, and then they just stay at 10% all the time, which means that using like swinging your weapon around, like to do movement tech and like engaging on enemies, you're going to charge those attacks faster, right? Sometimes you can't hit an enemy within a 3-second window, and then you lose all your stacks. That feels real bad, right? That feels real bad. It's a little bit different when we're talking like the Ogren. Frenzied Blows, right? 2.5% melee attack speed, unchained hit for 5 seconds. Now it's, for him, it's on chained hit. You can't miss any attacks, but the Ogren has the advantage of having big, wide, sweeping attacks, and he also has the advantage of being able to like make enemies be in melee with him and always be able to reach them. And 5 seconds, you know, it's pretty hard to miss as an Ogren, I would say. But 3 seconds is a really short window to have to keep up, and then if it falls off, you're shit out of luck. So yeah, I think this is definitely gets value by being attack speed in a class that doesn't have very many of them, but it's maybe one of the worser attack speed buffs in the game. Ablative motion routines, D tier. What the fuck is this thing? I don't even understand. 25% damage resistance while sprinting or sliding. I just don't understand who is taking their damage while they are sprinting or sliding. Hey, Kim, what's up? I guess you could run headlong into like gunner fire with your regeneration going and be like, fucking come at me, mate. But like, the reason you would take this is to get to faux render creed, right? But you would just take this instead. So given the option, do I want attack speed or do I want to get shot when I'm doing the one thing that I should be doing? Because if you're sprinting or sliding, like if you're sliding, what's hitting you when you're sliding, like in this theoretical? Is it like you're sliding through fire or something? I don't know, because you can't get shot. But if you're sprinting, you're just sliding, I feel like. That's like the thing that people just do in this game, is they just slide all the time. And so I just feel like this is never going to come up. Protectorate Protocol. When an ally in coherency is incapacitated, they have 25% damage resistance until freed. If you free them, they have stun immunity and 25% damage resistance for 6 seconds. Now, that's not bad, right? Like, that's pretty cool. Incapacitated counts pinned by a dog, pinned, like slammed by a mutant, grabbed by a chaos spawn, netted, all that stuff. And then if you had like a zealot on the team too, and they had what's the holy shield thing? That 60% damage resistance, it'll jump and like block the damage on them too. So that could be pretty good. So yeah, okay, we count as an ally in coherency. That's nice. Yeah, I think that I'll give this one a C tier. I think that's how I'm feeling on that one. Yeah, it's just like, it's cool to take less damage, but it's so seldom usable. Like the damage resistance when you're incapacitated, a lot of those incapacitating effects, they're not like, you're not taking a whole lot of damage when you're pinned by a dog. You're not taking a whole lot of damage when you're slammed by a mutant or whatever. Yeah, the trapper thing, but 25% less damage when you're trapper grabbed is usually just you getting beat to death like a little bit slower, right? If no one can get you. And also, obviously, the obvious thing I'm going to say here is that you have a choice here. If you're coming this way and you're getting the claw, which you are, come on, you're taking the Chud Claw, let's be honest. You're taking this perk, because this perk is Channel Mode of Force. Spending 1 stamina grants 15% damage for 4 seconds. That is an S tier perk right there. This is the best damage perk on this tree. It is so fucking easy to spend 1 stamina, and this just gives you, I mean, sprinting, shoving, like anything. Amazing. Just all damage increase, not just melee, not just ranged, all damage. So your claw damage, your melee damage, your burn damage, your electricity damage, all that stuff. The only thing it doesn't buff is Unispheric, but I think we're all right there. But yeah, S tier for sure. So you would definitely, if you wanted to get to Cord Claw, Chud Claw, you would go this way. And yeah, that's what you take there. And then right above that, we have Omniscient Recharge Litany. Hitting 3 or more enemies with an attack restores 10% toughness over 3 seconds. Boo. Boo. C tier. C tier, for sure. Okay, first of all, 10% toughness over 3 seconds. This is a way less valuable toughness regeneration node than anything else we've had in the tree so far. Like, this is less than this one is, and you get this all the time just for standing around. And you have to hit 3 enemies with 1 attack in order to get this. That's bad. And it only lasts for 3 seconds. So yeah, that's just like womp womp womp. Yeah, that's not very good. Take this. Take the residual current buffer to come up this way instead. Don't take this. Okay, so now we have surpassed this this second ring. I love the look of this. It looks really nice with the that's gonna be a nice thumbnail, don't you think? Alright. Then we have a very interesting one up here, which is Power Overflow. When at full toughness, 25% of excess toughness replenished is distributed to each ally in coherency. So it does distribute it to everybody. So if I generate 100 toughness, everybody on my team gets 25, which is really cool. The question would be, how valuable is this? Now, because of the nature of Skitarii's toughness regeneration being smooth, constant regenerative effect, it is actually like probably the best class to have a talent like this. Because if you were, say, for instance, the Arbites generates his toughness in big chunks, right? He slams into a group of enemies and he gets like 40% of his toughness back, and then like 20% more of his toughness back. And then that is gonna like jump to your enemies, 25% of it would, but if they're not missing it in that exact moment, womp womp. But if you're the Skitarii here, there's a good chance that at any given moment you're generating like 15% of your toughness passively, just kind of standing around because you maybe killed an elite, or you've crit, or you've got this, or you've got this, right? So all that stuff is taken together, and then that's just spilling over onto your allies. So we're taking chip damage, and yeah, it might only give them like 2 or 3% per second, but that's honestly like an extra full talent for them, which is very nice. This depends on, can your allies play in coherency with you, and can they not get instantly blown up, right? If they're taking little chip damage and stuff, this can help a lot, but you have to really trust your allies. You're sacrificing some of your own power to give them some, but like, you know, there are certain builds where you don't need anymore. And thank you for becoming a member there, being Big Joffrey. Now, you are very often you are in at 100% toughness with this class when you're playing in a more of a ranged configuration. And I think that would be my recommendation here. If you are going for a whatever they fix Advanced Combat Doctrines, by the way, if you're going for an Advanced Combat Doctrines build, this is when you should use this, because this can generate more if you've got coherency with your team, right? You've got coherency regeneration when you're not being threatened by enemies, when you're not being threatened in melee. So if your team can keep melee enemies from engaging on you, you can get your coherency regeneration, you could boost that up with curios, and you could take restoration protocols over here. This alone is 2.5% of your whole team's toughness every second for the entire duration of the ability, and then this adds up to a lot more. So I mean, we could do napkin math all day, but I think that if you are a range build who's like being protected in the middle, if you've got a coherent team like that, it'll provide a ton of value. So yeah, I do like it. I just think it's very situational to what sort of build you're using, because there are a lot of builds on this class. I'm going to give it a B tier. There are a lot of builds in this class where you aren't probably overcapped on toughness all the time. You're just going to be in there taking hits, you know, getting shot and stuff like that. So your toughness is recuperating, but you're not spilling over. Your cup don't runneth over. So I'll give it a B tier. And also it's, you know, dependent on your teammates being worth something. Who cares about refilling your teammates' toughness if they are garbage bags? So yeah, I'll give it a B tier. I think it's fine. Yeah. Oh yeah, coherency wouldn't work. That's a good point. Yeah, that actually is a good point. Okay, so coherency turns off, doesn't it? We could test it and see maybe if they forgot something, but yeah. Data sensor protocol. When you are an ally in coherency, take toughness damage, they restore 25% stamina, 15-second cooldown. When you are an ally in coherency, take health damage, they restore 25% toughness, 15-second cooldown. Now, listen, I might be basing this a little bit on the uptimes here. Where's my one that actually has a good thing? But this, I believe, ends up being active a lot. Where is it? 38.8% of the time. You know, this is it does trigger.
Wow.
Thank you, Zachary. The question with this is like, yeah, I mean, it's good to get your toughness back. You know, I mean, it's a guarantee. It's a mandatory for coming up this way. Here's what I'll say. If you're not taking redline capacitors, don't take this, obviously, right? If you are taking redline capacitors, I would recommend you take it, because otherwise you're not taking redline capacitors. So at a baseline, I'll give this a B tier, just because I think it's solid, just as a node that you must take in order to reach redline capacitors. It's not the most standout one that's on the tree. We definitely have better ones, but it's okay. And it does provide something to your whole team, right? How many times do you think that you would never know without like a mod to track it? But there's probably a good number of times over the course of a game where your allies start to take health damage, and then they get some toughness back because this kicks into effect, and then gives them 25% of the toughness back, bada bing, bada boom, in an instant, right? And that can trigger, right, anytime you take health damage. But I wonder if the toughness is added before it does the calculation. So like if it adds the toughness back to your bar and then does the calculation to see how much health you lose, because the health you lose from a melee attack is proportional to the actual like toughness that you're missing. But either way, it's okay. It's just okay. Okay, there we go. And then we have just a couple more up here. We'll save our... Oh, I guess we just do our aura. Resurgence. You and allies in coherency regenerate 50% coherency toughness regardless of enemy proximity. So if you didn't see my video on this yesterday, this is S tier. This is the best aura in the class for certain. No two ways about it. This generates a fuck ton of toughness over time, regardless of what's going on. So just to give you a brief rundown on the math on this ability, when you are in combat, normally, if you are engaged with enemies in melee combat, you don't get any coherency regeneration at all. It's dead still. You don't get anything. But if you have 3 of your allies around and there's no enemy who's threatening you in melee, who's trying to get you and slap you around, then you engage this coherency regeneration, which regenerates 7.5 flat toughness every second. And so 7.5 flat toughness out of 185 that you have, if you have all toughness curios, that's like 4% per second. So that's not bad, right? It's comparable to some other perks that we have here. It pauses for a slight second. It pauses for about 1.6 seconds if you get shot, or take damage, or take a hit, even if the hit doesn't do damage. But yeah, it's a decent effect. Now, take into account that this right here, this node makes you get 50% of the effect whether or not you are you're engaged in melee. Or what, I got a B deleted? Yeah, whether or not you're engaged in melee, this is going to be active all the time. So you're constantly getting at least 2% toughness every second. And then, oh yeah, this one over here. Oh, I didn't even do this over here. Oh no, it's because I went this way. So the real thing that we have to consider is the toughness regeneration curios. These bad boys right here. So toughness regeneration speed on the curio with this thing here, that's meta for certain, because this basically doubles it. So when you're engaged in melee, if you haven't taken a hit, say you're back dodging and you're dodging out of the way and you're sweating off some range damage or whatever, that's about 4%. It's 3.8% of your toughness per second, and that's on like Auric. On Havoc, because the number for your coherency regeneration is a flat amount, it doesn't scale down in Auric like your overall toughness does as a percentage base. So yeah, you end up getting a higher percentage per second. And if you understand how this game's melee damage system works, where you take a percentage of the damage that, you know, proportional to how much toughness you're missing when you take a melee attack, that actually ends up being really good. It means you can take hits in melee more often and take less damage as a result. And yeah, I mean, obviously it's the same amount of flat toughness. So yeah, it's actually really, really good. The problem with it normally is that you can't keep this active in melee, because enemies get on top of you and they stop the regeneration. This stops that from going into effect. And then you get to consider, like, okay, when you're not engaged in melee and you have the curios and you have this, like, you get that full benefit of doubling the regeneration speed, or more or less we're doubling it to like 14 flat toughness per second. And that is more than 10% of your toughness per second when you're on like Havoc 40. So that's a really, really big deal. This is definitely the best aura on the class. It's in a really good spot too for a lot of builds with this shock up here with system shock. I love this thing. So I've been running those curios. I am certain that it is providing a lot of value to my team. Maybe I'll get power DI one of these days and I'll see exactly how much of value it is providing. But my intuition, I mean, even just for myself, this is a ton of regeneration. It's very nice to be able to recuperate toughness at that speed. So awesome. Love that thing. Next up we have overcharged transfer lattice. I guess I could just be using this. Why am I using the website? Okay, well, whatever. Whatever. We'll just use the Darktide. I was in here the whole time. Left of center node missing letter. Good point. Oop, how'd that happen? Thank you. Overcharge transfer lattice. If an enemy hits you with a melee attack, they and the enemies within 2.5 meters of them are electrocuted. 15-second cooldown. Let me show you what this looks like really quickly. That's what it looks like. Okay. So not half bad, right? Because you don't have to take any damage from the attack. 2.5 meters. Let me make certain my transfer lattice is up. It is a little bit of a long cooldown, but this is a pretty nice defensive node just by virtue of, like, okay, it just kind of stops everything on one side of you from being able to attack you when you take a hit. And generally, like this, the Hive Scum has a pretty similar node to this, right? The Hive Scum has a node that knocks back all enemies when you take a melee hit around you. And that node is really good because when you take a melee hit, usually the way that you take damage is you get like wombo comboed. You get hit like boom, boom, back to back. So you take one hit, which breaks your toughness and does a little bit of health damage, and the second one does a fuck ton of health damage. So this stops that from happening because you take the first hit and then the second guy that was going to attack you, no longer. And it is a forced electrocution. So yeah, that's actually really good. Cool Guy says the debuff only affects coherency or toughness regen, not talent replenishment. So changes the mass sum. Okay, so we lose the code. Okay, so it would go down by 50%. So you would just go back to the default numbers. So it would retain a similar value percentage-wise because you would just be lowered down to getting. Gotta run the math in my head, but you'd be lowered down to getting like 7 toughness per second when you're not in combat or whatever it is. I don't know, but yeah, it would still probably be. It would definitely be good. It's still good. It's definitely better than the other options, and it's in a good spot. So regeneration is good. If you're playing Auric, this is nasty. But yeah, so this is good. I like this a lot. I think this is probably an A tier. I would say the reason I'm giving it an A and not like an S is because the radius is really small, and that ticking is going to drive me insane. There, I can't hear it. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is an A just by virtue of having a small radius, and again, another one of these instances where I wish this had a visual to display what was actually going on, because oftentimes you'll get lost in the wash, like what's actually going on. Are these enemies attacking me or what are they doing? Right. So I'm gonna say that yeah, A tier in terms of defenses, and yeah, if you had a little bit more radius, it would be nice. This does also, I believe, affect dogs, because they deal damage to you that is melee. Oh, yep, it worked. He's stunned. Nice. Cool. Okay, so it does work on dogs. Nice. I think I do have them for every other class. I might not have it for like Psyker or something. I can't remember. I feel like there's one class I didn't do. All right, then up here we have S tier. Let's continue to move along. I've been wasting too much time demonstrating these. So yeah, this one up here, this is Retribution Conduit, 10% damage versus electrocuted, increased by 5% per current charge. That is an S tier additive damage thing. There is a potential of 35% damage versus electrocuted with this class with red line capacitors. That is huge. That is massive, because what this does is just multiplies all damage when the target is electrocuted. And if they're electrocuted and you just took system shock, they are embrittled 40% too. So the arc rifle is now hitting these enemies for plus 40% brittleness and with 35% extra damage at a baseline. This also scales incredibly with Arc Maul, with Shock Maul, all these weapons that passively are shocking enemies. The Shock Maul, my favorite weapon on the class, obviously already has a 25% damage versus electrocuted, so that stacks even further. Yeah, this is a huge damage steroid. That's a crazy buff. Right next to it, though, we have a defensive buff. This is called Kinetic Energy Distributors. Taking damage restores 25%, toughness over 5 seconds, 10-second cooldown. This is a pretty good one, because this is a taking damage, including to your toughness, will trigger this. So you'll get that 5% per second for the next 5 seconds with only a 10-second cooldown. That's not half bad. It's definitely one of the better defensive perks out here because it just triggers when you start to take shots. So that can be pretty nice. I will give this an A tier. If you're interested in picking up an additional defensive node, this is probably one of the better ones on the tree to grab, just because it generates a nice fat amount. And yeah. All right, then we have only a few left in this ring, or about halfway around the outer ring. We are over here to Hybrid Combat Covenant. Melee kills increase range damage by 8% for 3 seconds, stacking 5 times. Range kills increase melee damage by 3% for 8 seconds, stacking 5 times. And these stacks decay 1 at a time. So the reason this is so good, again, as you might imagine, is because the skull can do it for us. That makes this S tier. You might have noticed, if I was showing my uptimes earlier, when I'm playing with my new Spheric in the build, this little guy is 92.5% uptime, right? With an average stacks of 4.19, which means that because he's the range kills, this is buffing my melee kills by 12 to 15% the entire game long while he's just doing his thing. So we basically just get a free buff for having the skull doing his thing and getting a fuck ton of damage. Now, as far as the other direction, in this particular instance, I think this is the build. I think this is where I was playing New Spheric Commander. Yeah, I was. So I'm New Spheric Commander here, so I should have probably a really low other direction because I was probably not meleeing very much at all. But yeah, even without like using both sides of it, this is crazy good. Just a flat, huge increase to your melee damage whenever you want to get into a combat. Easy include on pretty much every build, especially if you're using New Spheric and stuff, because you can just come up here and get all these perks that work so well together. This little V right here, going this one, and then down here, that is amazing value with New Spheric. We'll go right below this to Superior Tracking Litanies, minus 50% movement speed penalty while bracing or aiming down sights. Additionally, you gain minus 30% spread. Is what I would say about this. I can't really think about a whole lot of weapons where that's like the most valuable thing in the world. I'm racking my brain here, but yeah, while bracing or aim down sights and minus 30%. The thing is like with minus 30% spread, I would assume you would use this when you were using Advanced Combat Doctrines, which is an auto-aim ability, which is going to hit targets for you. There's not a whole lot of weapons on this class where I'm really all that concerned about spread, like Arc Rifle and Phosphor Pistol don't really have spread. Galvanized doesn't. Maybe if I was using autoguns, like this would be useful for autogun, like Braced Autogun and Infantry Autogun. And that's about it, to be quite honest with you. So yeah, I'm going to give this one a D tier, I guess. This feels like, yeah, it feels like all the strong weapons and the stuff that you'd be building around to make a ranged archetype build on this class is not going to be using this at all. So yeah, just don't. Like, there's no need to take that. As far as the aura next to it, I'll just, off the top of my head, plus 25 toughness, and your team gets 10% increased magazine, or not magazine, but reserve ammo capacity, so 10% extra ammo. I'll give it a B tier, I guess. I mean, if you're over here, it's a pretty mid sort of aura, 10% extra ammo to the whole team, I guess. If you can't reach this, the thing about this aura up here is that like, it's versatile. You can use this on any build, right? If you're using a range build and you can be here, use this instead, because it's going to provide toughness to the team. This is such a small buff. 10% or 10% reserve capacity is such a small buff. That's literally on the order of, like, you know, for a Rumbler Ogre, that's like 3 grenades or something. Yeah, that's not anywhere nearly as valuable as this regeneration that you could be popping up here. And yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna say B tier on that one, unless, you know, just don't take it unless you don't have the access to get up here with your talent points. And we're gonna come down here and get, ooh, Rad Sync. After not shooting for 1 second, each subsequent second spent not shooting increases range damage by 10% on your next shot, stacks 2 times. So this is 20% range damage. This is the... I'm trying to think like what this is good for. I mean, I'm certain there is some sort of breakpoint you could hit here with 20% extra damage on 1 shot. But I can, again, I just don't have a weapon in mind here where I'm like gonna be pausing. This is about 3 seconds, so 1 second of waiting, then another second to get the first buff, and a third second to get that third buff. So yeah, I just don't think this is very good. It's definitely like more usable than the previous one. You could get damage out of it at the very least, but it's maybe like for galvanized sniping or something, but even then I feel like you're firing way more often than every 3 seconds. Yeah, of the 10%, it wouldn't matter for Havoc debuffs, like Covine says. Yeah, it's so Havoc affects the ammo that you get back from packs and stuff, so 40%. So effectively, this will raise your baseline that you would get back from packs, because packs are scaled on your maximum ammo, right? And then you would lose 40, or you lose 60% of that value. So yeah, if this, say hypothetically, you had 100 ammo, as your weapon had 100 ammo, and an ammo pack restores 10, well, on Havoc, you would have still 100 ammo, but an ammo pack would only restore 4. And this would bump your ammo to 110, and an ammo pack would restore 11, and then on Havoc, it might restore 5 if it rounded up right. So you get 10% more ammo when you collect packs too, which is okay. But you already got a 25% one right there. I feel like that's probably good enough. Yeah, I feel like maybe the phosphor pistol could use that, but this is such a low priority in terms of like, okay, you know, I could take Rad Sync and get 20% extra damage on 1 shot every however often with the phosphor pistol, or any one of a million other nodes that are just like huge damage increases to all of my damage all the time, and it just doesn't seem like a very favorable proposition to me. Then we have Ammo Restoration Pod. Every 15 seconds replenish 1% of your max ammo reserve. This is just straight B tier material. It's something, right? It's just a very slow trickle of ammo. I get they didn't want to make this Skitarii entirely self-sufficient when it comes to ammo. It feels a little bit stingy on a lot of classes. I believe the let me actually like swap. What's the lowest base ammo? Would it be like the revolver? So the revolver will have 52, and then if I don't have this talent here, I'm gonna shoot some ammo. We gotta wait. We gotta wait 15 seconds. Okay, so we got 251. So I mean, ostensibly, hopefully it has a minimum. Hopefully it's not the same way that the veterans passive is, where it doesn't round up. So here we go. We're gonna get 1 bullet. No, okay, that's terrible. That sucks. Okay, so yeah, this doesn't trigger. This doesn't round up. It gives you it gives you a fraction of a bullet, because I have 55 rounds or so in here, and so 1% of that, I'll have to wait a second set of 15 seconds in order to get it. Hold on, we're gonna wait. Should trigger. There it goes. Okay, so there we go. 30 seconds of waiting to get 1 bullet. That's not exactly great. So this is better the higher your reserve ammo is. So this is obviously the best on the arc rifle and the plasma gun. But yeah, like revolver, it sucks with that. Yeah, that's unfortunate. And then the other really sad thing is that like there are a number of weapons that do have pretty high magazine capacities, but for the most part, those one or not magazine, but reserve capacities like the infantry autoguns and stuff. But those guns getting a 1% every 15 seconds 1% of a 60 or 1% of 500 is 5 bullets, right? 5 bullets from the infantry autogun does almost nothing, right? Versus you can get 2.5 shots every 15 seconds for the arc rifle, and that's actually a lot. Like 3 shots with the arc rifle is a big deal. It does a lot of work. So yeah, that's pretty good. We'll come down here, and is that everything in our... Oh no, we got a couple more here. Okay, we gotta go down here. All right, so we got hydraulic impact, uninterruptible while charging. Melee attacks gain 15% heavy melee damage. This is pretty good. This is pretty good. I will give this an A tier. This one is very nice for the arc maul. I found a lot of use for this on because the arc maul is kind of slow and it will get interrupted by all sorts of stuff. You don't want to get knocked out of your attacks by various shovings around and stuff. This also is just 15. Like other classes have uninterruptible, but this one gives you 15% heavy damage, and heavy damage is some of your most damaging attacks. And the claw is counted as heavy damage. That's 15% claw damage. So yeah, not a bad one. It's kind of like out of the way, but if you're going for a melee build. Anyway, so we have to go on to our next friend, which is this little boy down here. Adaptive Combat Engram. On toughness break, gain 30% damage resistance for 5 seconds. Can only occur once every 15 seconds. It's kind of mid. I feel weird about this. When your toughness is completely broken is not typically when you want to get a bunch of damage resistance, right? You want to get that before the toughness gets broken so you don't start to take any health damage. It's welcome, like don't get me wrong, it's welcome to have, but I would rather have some things in place to stop me from ever getting to that state of having my toughness being broken than this. So I'll give this a B tier just for being it's a decent defensive buff that can protect you from like lethal damage potentially, like getting blown up or something, but it's nothing I'm like writing home about. Slaughter Protocol, 25% toughness replenishment on melee kill, meaning the default 5% toughness replenishment on melee kill is now 6.25%, and that's increased to 50%, aka 7.5% when you're at 0 charges. D tier? Yeah, D tier. Don't take this. What the heck? Why in the world would you need... Because there's nothing else that's scaling this on this class, right? This is not like increasing other toughness replenishment. This just means the on-kill replenishment. So you're going to get a little bit more out of your direct kills, but that's not how this class regenerates its toughness. This class regenerates its toughness by just standing around, or by getting crits, or by killing elites, right? Not by individually killing dudes in melee. So this will really not add up to much at all in the grand scheme of things, and it has to be triggered with melee kill, which sucks. So yeah, that is not very good. Don't take that. Now we'll go to our last aura, Foe Render Creed. You and allies in coherency gain 15% cleave and 7.5% rending. Like, I mean, if you're here and you have to take an aura, I guess this is, I would say, probably the worst aura. This is the one that I care the least about. 10%. 10% rending is like nothing. Like there's a veteran node that gives you 10% rending, like it's a veteran talent that does that, and it's comical how little damage that gives, even on weapons that benefit from rending a lot. The 7.5 this gives is like it's gonna be single digit amounts of numbers. Like and a lot of the weapons on this class don't care. Like they just don't care, because the two bonk weapons, the arc maul and the shock maul, they both have like 80% rending already. The extra amount is not going to benefit them. And then we have the transonic blade and the knife. The transonic blade can just rend automatically when it's got the when it's in heavy mode, the penetration mode, and then the knife also has uncanny strike. So I don't know, man. I don't think that rending is worth very much. And then 15% cleave is not worth very much at all, considering we just picked up 30 right here, and we could pick up 50 if we go over here. So yeah, I'm gonna pass on that one. I think there was maybe one build I took this where I had no other options, so I couldn't reach anything else. So yeah. All right, we got 2 more to go in this tier, in this last circle here. Voltaic Restoration, restoring 20% toughness to you and allies in coherency on ability use. And you know, because this is right next to Cord Claw Strike, this is gotta be a lovely little S tier. 20% burst toughness is a lot of toughness on this class that regenerates pretty smoothly, and this makes the use of Cord Claw Strike a both offensive and defensive choice. It immediately gives you a big burst of toughness and can, you know, sort of get your way out of a situation, reposition, slash the enemies that were just hitting you or whatever. That's a very, very nice node to lead into one of the best abilities on the class. So we definitely like that. And then right next to it is evasive servo recovery, successful dodge restore 10% stamina. This is doo-doo. Why did I just grab an A? I meant to grab a D for doo-doo. I don't really foresee ever taking this. 10% of our measly stamina is nothing important at all, and stamina is like not really impactful in this class. If this was like Hive Scum and you could do some shenaniganery with like Strip Down or something, I guess. You know, now that I think about it, there is Strip Down on like Infantry Autoguns, so maybe you could run around with that, but it's only 10%, and I just, yeah, don't take this. Don't take that. That's just like, that's extra utility junk for stamina, which you don't need, because what you do need, guys, is you need the Servo Skull, the S-est of S tier blitzes in the entire game. This is, I would say, the best blitz in the entire game right now. It has insane utility, right? It can just hack things for you. It can potentially, it can rescue your allies. It can just kill everything better than any veteran in the game can. Yeah, it's basically a veteran that you carry around on your shoulder, but he doesn't throw the game, and he doesn't have crack grenades or shout. But that's it. Like, that's the only functional difference. This thing is so good at just carrying damage, at buffing you. All these talents over here can be carried single-handedly by the skull. Currently, as it stands, there is no reason on this class to be taking anything except for the skull. Well, I guess there is one reason. It's doing penances, I suppose. There is that. So you could do that, but outside of that, there's no reason to not be fucking with the skull. The skull is so much damage added to your character. It's super synergistic. He's the best little buddy you could ever hope. And when you take other blitzes, you lose the skull. You lose the ability to hack and stuff, which is also clutch. So yeah, S tier beyond belief. Take it. At least take the basic node in pretty much every build. Would be my recommendation right now. I would recommend that you come out right here. You do these 4 points on every single build in the current state of things. Those 4 are just so good. Okay, then we'll have to talk about New Spheric Command. Insanely goated. This thing is insane. I mean, you probably... Well, I'll put out a video. I'll put the video of me playing Auric with 4 people, and we literally just cruise through Auric with only New Spheric Command. We used the drones to hack all the terminals, and we just pressed F on targets, or tag key on targets, and just watched them shred everything. It is so aggressive. It's so pinpoint accurate. It costs no... capacitance. It refunds some of its own capacitance because it can actually get headshots and it can get elite kills and stuff. And it's just a massive, massive benefit to most builds. I've been adding it into builds like left and right because there's so many situations where you're like dealing with so much shit. You're like trying to push and dodge and shove and block your way out of a situation. And like you got a bunch of horde around you and you're low on stamina. And then there's a trapper who comes running up and you're like, God damn it. And in a normal game, you'd have to like get ready to dodge and there's probably not space. Or you have to pull out your range weapon and maybe take a melee hit or two. For this, you just look up for a second and you flick and you tag them and you're like, my drone's got this. And you're all good. So this guy pumps damage like no one's business, and it's really, really, this is really exceptional. They have a lot of work to do if they want to make the other capacitances, or like the other grenades compete with this at all. Then we have the Flamer Skull. Ugh. You know, I played with Reginald last night, and there is a little bit of a synergy here. There's an optimization. I'm not certain if it's intentional. When you use Voltaic Emitter, if you use it at 3 charges, then for the next 15 seconds, your attacks electrocute, and that can apply this System Shock. So this actually applies to the flame of the Flame Skull when it's like doing its spinning thing around, so you can apply brittleness with it. It's something, I guess. More importantly, it also applies to New Spheric, so you can embrittle enemies while you shoot them if you use that together, which is pretty funny. So, yeah, I still think this is, at best, a C tier sort of thing. I don't think it's as straight useless as some of these D tier ones where they add nothing to your build. This can clear hordes and stuff, right? If you just don't have any horde clear on the team, it can deal with a pretty wide area of horde, but it just takes so long. And yes, it will deal a lot of damage. You know, we were playing and he was dropping it in like havocs, and you know, one of these can pull like 80,000 damage or so. But the problem is like there's so much beef in hordes, and like, yeah, it might deal 80,000, but it's split between a million different enemies, and it applies it so slow. I really just think that this thing needs to stack its fire stacks faster. And the other thing I really wish they would do is I wish they would split the charges. I think that you should get charges for using this flame skull, and then you should also have different charges for using the Medicae skull. And by the way, the Medicae skull I'll give an A tier here. The Medicae skull, you know, being able to direct this skull to rescue an ally who's disabled or hogtied out of your reach, this can be really, really clutch. So having this just get someone back earlier, or like with more ease than they otherwise would have had to fight for. There's a lot of times where you're on the run and you need to get one person up who goes down in a really bad spot. You're like fighting and falling back and they get downed, and otherwise you're gonna like lose them. They would get like drowned in the horde that's surrounding them, and you can use this to pick them up and get them to regroup with the team, and that can save the run. It is definitely very capable of like saving runs, and it's awesome for that. But my one issue with it is that it shares the charges with the flamer thing. And also, if you're playing really, really well, like if your team is popping and then people really aren't getting downed, or if they are getting down, it's just by their own sloppiness. I do feel like in a lot of situations, in most situations, there's a way to get people up without using this, right? You could just walk up to them in a lot of situations and pick them up. It would take like 2 seconds of extra fighting, and this saves you that. 1 in every 3 games or so, there's a situation that arises where having one of these could be like very, very clutch. So you can't discount that, because it could win the game, right? A single point that could save the game, pretty valuable, probably more valuable than some other stuff, especially if you are building around less your damage and more the drone. Okay, that's that one. And then I suppose let's save the keystones and stuff for last. We'll head around the top side here and we'll talk about this bolt grenade. I can't remember what it's called. Arc grenades. Throw an arc grenade, creating an electrical explosion that arcs 4 times, prioritizing armored and specialist enemies, dealing massive damage and impact. When it says massive, by the way, what that means is 1,000 damage. And it also, it can hit arc and hit the same target multiple times, but it's pretty inconsistent. Overcharged arc grenades increases the number of arcs by 2 to 6. And if you hit enemies with arc, it applies 8 stacks of 2.5% brittleness to them, which is probably redundant because it's very likely you have system shock already, which is going to also apply that. And then enhanced arc grenades, which will make ranged enemies within 8 meters have their ranged weapons malfunction, making them unable to use them for 12 seconds. Okay. Yeah, so we'll give this, let's just start out with the raw facts here. I'm gonna give this a C tier. First of all, number one reason why this sucks. You lose the skull. You can't use the skull and this. So that's bad. It can act as a primer, right? That's the thing that I want this to be. I want this to be something that could like synergize with my ultimates and my shock weapons, but it just doesn't end up being that. It ends up just straight killing like a good number of metal enemies. Sure, it'll kill like gunners and stuff like that, but that's it. And it can just miss targets that are directly adjacent to it and in obvious places. You only get 3, and I just don't. I've used it in like a couple games, and I just have not felt like, oh wow, that arc grenade really just saved the moment there, as compared to how much value, especially if you're taking one of these nodes out here. These are ridiculous. There's no way you're taking these. Out of these 2 here, by the way, this one, I'll give it a C, I guess. I mean, it's adding 2 extra arcs, so 50% more value on your arc grenade ostensibly. This one's just terrible, because this only disables enemies within 8 meters. That's a very small radius, and yeah, it's like half of those enemies should be dead anyway. To any like normal ass blitz, you shouldn't be throwing this to like disrupt enemies from shooting you, is what I'm saying, right? That just seems like that is such a waste of a talent point to be like, oh, I'm gonna throw a grenade and then Like, you know, what about just like shooting at those guys and killing them instead of like throwing a grenade to disable their guns and then killing them? It's not that tactical of a game. We're not out here. You know, the veteran has smoke grenades. Can you imagine if the veteran smoke grenades didn't replenish? If you just had 3 smoke grenades, like would anyone use that? Probably not, right? And this is the same thing I feel about this. So yeah, the arc grenades, they just need to not be a limited resource in this way. If they're going to be like this, it's just there's no way I would end up taking this over, especially not with 2 points over New Spheric Command. The immense value that can provide just at a moment's notice. And I just don't see what the use case is yet. I've seen one Skitarii playing with him, and what do you know? He threw his grenades, and then he was out of grenades, and then we didn't find any more grenades, and then we had a big fight, and then we lost the fight, and then the game ended because you can't guarantee that you have grenades, right? Yeah, it disables Reapers because those are the only enemies that survive the blast, usually. If it's within 8 meters, it should be dead to the shock. Sometimes it doesn't, though. Sometimes the arc avoids enemies entirely for some fucking reason. Just misses them geometrically, which can be really annoying. The ability of other classes that have decent grenades to regenerate them, albeit slowly, is sorely missed here. If this had a regeneration ability, like even 1 every 2 minutes or something, it would be worth something. Having it be hard cap limited is really, really brutal. It's definitely not as good as like just funneling all the grenades to your hive scum. Womp womp. And then we have, well, I mean, it can't be beat, you know, by this. the shield ability. Integrated refraction emitter, this is D tier. This is crap, dude. This is not how this game works, right? What notion is there that like when you start to take damage that you're going to be aware of when that's going to happen and you're going to be able to press the grenade button, right? I think we've all experienced it. When you die in Darktide, it's not like, oh, I'm taking sustained fire and I need to activate my shields now, right? It's holy fuck, what just killed me? And it's out of fucking nowhere. It's just like, oh my god. Like, sure, this can protect you if you see a bunch of bursters coming in, go activate this, and, oh wait, no, never mind. It can't do that. Because it's only range damage. My bad. So you'd have to, well, I was like gaslighting myself into thinking this was like better than it was, because I was like imagining my hypothetical version of this in my brain. So yeah, this is like, okay, I could stand out in the open and get shot by a bunch of gunners if I activate this ability. Or I could just hide from the gunners or position or slide, right? Like there's no excuse for getting shot by gunners, I think, in this game. I think that getting shot by gunners is something that is not happening to like more skilled players. They're able to evade in positions so that doesn't happen. And this would be infinitely more useful if it protected you from all damage, because things that do happen to even experienced players is getting surrounded by enemies on all sides, right? And needing to like activate defensive matrix to like get yourself out of that situation. That would be good. That would actually be a good use, and I might take it for that. But when every time you use this, you're stealing a grenade from the team, and it is like that's one less something the team could have done with one extra rocket or one extra chem bomb or one extra frag bomb for the Ogren, or even a stun grenade or something, right? Or even a whole pack of shock mines, right? Pretty much every other grenade pickup is more valuable than a character using this. And yeah, this sucks. It defends you only from range damage, which is so strange. Upon activation, again when it ends, create an electric explosion around you, electrocuting enemies within 5 meters. It is such a small radius. It is literally like 5 feet in front of you. And in order to get that effect, to actually hit enemies, you'd have to be in like melee range to them. So like, how are you getting shot when you're right in people's face? So you're going to get meleeed, which you're not immune to. Okay, so that's D tier. Increase the field duration to 12 seconds, you know? If we're ranking it on the curve of this is within the subset of integrated refraction emitter, this is B tier, you know? Having a 50% duration increase, not half bad. If this wasn't shitty and didn't use grenades, then this would be good. We would take this. Voltaic resistance. When your refraction emitter ends, shoot up to 4 arcs towards enemies in front of you based on the number of attacks absorbed. That is C tier. You know, it does something. It's cool. This is a cool idea, right? The problem is like, taking enough damage to do this, because it's 10 attacks. Getting hit 10 times with 10 bullets gives you 1 arc, and it caps at 4. So you got to get shot 40 times to get the maximum arcs out of this, and then you got to be like close enough to enemies, like it's like 12.5 meters or so, in order to reach them with arcs. So you're like wading into gunner fire, standing still enough if they can actually hit you, which you'll have to like override your brain's already established pathways of, oh, I'll slide to avoid these attacks. No, you just want to get shot in the face, but don't time it wrong because you'll get blown up and killed in the next second. And yeah, and then we have like the most worst, shittiest. I've never seen a worser perk than this in the entire game. I literally cannot. This is a triple D. Fucking terrible. Kinetic repulsion. Limit all health damage taken while integrated refraction emitter is active to 50. That does not mean that you cannot take more than 50 damage total across the entire duration of the ability. It means that any instance of damage that you take during this ability is limited to 50. Keep in mind, we are immune to range damage. So this is only going to make us immune to bursters. Well, it'll reduce bursters to 50, and it'll reduce melee damage to 50, and it'll reduce fall damage to 50. And that's it. Those are like the only, like, how are you taking a damage hit that's more than 50 damage while this is active? This is no joke. Like, Arbites has a single talent called True Grit that gives you this effect the entire game. If you take an attack, it lowers that damage to 50. You can't take more than 50 in one hit from an attack. That effect is active the whole game. It takes 1 talent to get. It's right next to other good talents. And then this requires you to take a blitz that is, you have 3 charges of, that's only active for 8 seconds when you activate it. You have to choose to activate it, right? So like you have to predict that this imaginary big fucking hit is coming. And then the last 50, like the last icing on the cake is that you have to take another talent node to get the talent that Arbites has for free. Like, what is, like, why would that be? Who balanced this? Why would that be good at all in any way, shape, or form? That is such a ripoff. Like, no one is getting hit with a fucking crusher overhead while they've got this thing going. But like, phew, thank God I took 2 talent points in there. I've run, I don't know, 50 games since the update came out, and I have not seen a single person use this, because I think innately people can be like, yeah, no, that's dog shit. Like, even people who are grinding penances, I haven't seen them run into it. It's like, yeah, and there you go. Like Aquila is saying, when I get sniped by a sniper, when you get hit by something that you are like need to block damage from, it happens as a surprise in this game, right? It happens as the burster that falls around the corner at the last possible second, or the crusher that turns and overheads you, or you get hit on your big toe with the mauler whose overhead was like just that 1 pixel too long, like, or the sniper laser you didn't see, right? Those sort of things happen because you're not paying attention, because you couldn't predict it, and that's when True Grit comes into play for the Arbites, and it's super good on him because, you know, sometimes you make a fucky lucky. This, you have to predict you're gonna fuck up somehow, which would be pretty insane to do. Oh, I just remember we're gonna have fireworks in the middle of this. But anyway, that's enough fireworks about that shitty ability, and I think that's everything for blitzes. Let's talk about these keystones here. Flensing protocols. You have up to 6 stacks of flensing protocols. Each stack grants 2.5% damage and 2.5% damage, toughness damage reduction. Taking damage removes 1 stack, can only occur once every 1 second. Elite and special skills restore 1 stack and restore 15% toughness. So this is actually very, very good. It seems like it would be hard to keep up, but if you're decent at the game, especially if you have the assistance from a little Noospheric buddy, this can go a long way. This can actually stay very well stacked up. So if you watch the footage, actually no, I don't know if I had it. I did have it in my build guide, but I forgot to have Noospheric in there. But even then, I still had very high stacks of this because, yeah, getting an elite kill, getting a specialist kill, happens pretty often. And when you take attacks, usually what you're thinking is like, oh, when gunners shoot me, they go and they hit me like 4 times, right? But that usually happens within like the span of 1 second. So you might lose 1 maybe 2 stacks, but really not that bad at all. So yeah, I'm gonna give this one an A tier here. I think this is a very solid one. It feels really good on a number of different weapons because this is one of the only things that gives you attack speed on this class. So attack speed and crit is really good. Higher purpose, S tier. This is juicy, 5% capacitance. Elites and specialists already give 4. This pumps you to 9, and then you can get a weak spot kill, which would be 11. Never forget, guys, that you can get that much capacitance out of this ability. Hone Dissector bumps the max stacks to 8, which will increase cleansing protocols to from 15% damage and 15% toughness damage reduction to 20 and 20 of those, which is very nice. Definitely take that. Enhanced capacitance protocols. Oh, and so I'll give that, I don't know, I guess I'll give it an A. Like that's 5% and 5%. And then using an ability replenishes all stacks. This is dependent on your, I'm going to give this an A as well. This is dependent on your personal necessity of this. If you're using Cord Claw, definitely, absolutely use this because Cord Claw is up so often and you're in melee generally. So you're going to take more hits and it's going to chip you down in terms of your stacks. So this will get you back up to max stacks, easy reset. But maybe you're playing a more safe long distance build or one that's gonna CC enemies, and then maybe you less on that. But this one over here is definitely S. Grabbing this right here, Servo Sinew Surge. Each stack grants 1.5% crit chance and 1.5% melee attack speed. That's 12% crit and 12% melee attack speed. Now we're talking. You know, if you can keep this even remotely stacked up at like 6 to 8 stacks, somewhere in there. Actually, do I wonder if... Oh, man. I don't know if I mean, it's probably not on my... I wish you could go back further on these. Wait, can I like delete some? Uh-oh. I hope I didn't crash the game there. Anyway, yeah, the 8 stacks is super good because it adds more here. It adds more to everything. It's 5% more damage, 5% more toughness damage reduction, and then it'd be 3% more crit and 3% more attack speed. It's more value if you have this as well. But if you needed to skip one, you could skip that one or this one depending on your preference. But yeah, this is super good. It's one of the only sources of crit and one of the only sources of attack speed in the whole tree, and this class is really good with crits and attack speed. Okay, coming over here, let's do the Cord Claw Strike, the Chud Claw, as we call it. We know what this has got to be. I mean, come on. This is an S tier, right? This is a crazy ability. This ability is so good. It is Kruber's Grail Knight Sword, the horizontal slash, and the overhead strike down all in one. It's got a face rip. It's got a horde clear. Yeah, this thing is super versatile. It can be used as movement tech to like whoosh, sling yourself and like zoom across the map. This is such a good feeling ability. It's powerful. It's like just raw powerful, and yeah, no notes. Awesome ability. Actually, one note, I will say. Okay, so now we got some augments here. This augment on the top, 25% of your capacitance gained over 5 seconds when you use this ability. This does not stack. It will refresh, though. This is S tier. This is awesome because this can be multiplied by your capacitance generation from, say, redline capacitors or from power overload, if you have this node right here. And that is going to multiply up to being about 40% of your capacitance, which is, you know, you're more or less like most of the way to refunding the charge you just used. This makes this super free, right? If you think about it, like, you know, we have a certain amount of, you know how earlier I was talking about you get like 20 extra claws out of this thing right here. Well, what if every one of those claws gets a 40% discount? You know, then we are pushing we get to multiply that by basically double it, like almost double the number of claws that you get to do across the course of a game. So this one talent is going to give you 40 claws worth, which is insane. So yeah, that's super, super good. Oh, good, they fixed that cleansing. That's nice. Okay, so that's super, super good. The other one that's really, really good is, of course, the horizontal slash. This is crazy good. We definitely love that horizontal slash. It makes the ability so versatile, right? The ability to either rip a face or go, get this shit away from me and slap everything in front of you, that makes all the difference on this ability. The fact that you can just like wipe out a hallway of dudes. And this ability, this one also, the horizontal slash, has like this huge inertia boost where you can like rip yourself forward and like throw yourself through a group of enemies. It's really fun to like zip around with this thing. So that feels amazing. But then we have one down here that I don't really like so much. I'm going to give this a C tier. The triple stab thing, listen, maybe someone out there gets it and I just don't. I don't understand what the use case of this is. The triple stab, you can't take both of these at the same time. These are mutually exclusive and these are mutually exclusive. So you can't take that and that or that and that. That to me removes one of the best features about this claw, and in exchange I get this little triple stab that to me is not that much more effective at killing bosses or whatever than just the base face ripper. And it's like extra boss DPS that you just don't need, because I mean, have you seen this class fighting captains? Have you seen this class fighting bosses? Does the Chud Claw need an extra talent point to do that? Because the bleed that it applies is like not that damaging. It can bleed through shields and stuff. I guess there's that. But yeah, like this is not worth sacrificing the versatility of being able to horde clear with this and insta-kill or, you know, larger targets. So yeah, maybe not so much. I would like to see this get changed into something else and just be different. I don't know how, but it is different, because right now, like, there's no contest between these two. Over here, this is gaining 20% power on your next claw strike for every time you use it. You have to use it within the next 5 seconds. I'm gonna give this a B tier. I can't personally stand behind the notion of using all of my claws up like that, right? I personally think that you should be running high on capacitance, because there's a lot of nodes in the tree that generate more value when you have a higher capacitance. And it's like this, I don't really want to be chaining claws back to back to back and getting, because remember, this doesn't trigger 3 times. This doesn't scale with this. It's not like this gives you all 3 stacks. You have to use the ability 3 times. You have to drop 300% capacitance to get to 60% extra damage. If you're doing that, why don't you just like bring some primers? Why don't you bring the shock maul and brittle the enemy up and then get skull crusher on them, and then you rip their fucking face off? I mean, this ability already, the baseline ability, without stacking extra damage, is already one-shotting every enemy in the game up to Havoc 40 if you literally just hit them with any damage-taking debuff at all, right? Except for bosses. So this would literally only be useful for bosses. That's it. So yeah, I don't believe in that being like anything. And you lose out on getting all that capacitance back. You lose out on regenerating, 40% more claws over the course of the game. No thanks. Then up here, we've got a couple more things to talk about. We've got red line capacitors. Oh my gosh, this is delightful. Red line capacitors, spending or gaining a charge, grants 5% toughness damage reduction and 5% capacitance generation for 12 seconds, stacking 4 times, stacks decay 1 at a time. Why do they do that? Why does it have to be 1 at a time? Like, it's already so good. I mean, I love it, but like, Jesus Christ, the uptime on this is crazy. It is so hard to not have like maximum stacks of redline capacitors the entire game, which just means you are constantly getting 25% toughness damage reduction, 25% capacitance generation, and an extra ability charge, which is so freaking juicy. I mean, naturally, you're going to take this with resource optimization canticles. So that is also an S, because resource optimization canticles is going to give you another ability charge, basically another 100% capacity to bank, for whatever you want, right? 4 more new spheric commands, another cord call strike, that's super big, and another redline capacitor stack, which increases your capacitance generation by 5% and increases your toughness damage reduction by 5%. Crazy, right? That is amazing. That's super awesome. And then over here, advanced power management. On ability use, gain 5% strength for each charge you had on use for 10 seconds. Depends on your ability, right? Depends on your ability. For cord call users, absolutely S tier. For in general, overall, I'll give it the A. It's not quite so impactful. You could drop this one for something else because it is just 10 seconds. And when you're low on charges, if you end up being low on charges, this isn't giving you like anything, right? It could be 25% strength if you're staying on those 5 charges and getting a big boost, but it might not be. And again, if you do use your ability with Voltaic, you'll drop down to 2 charges, and then you gotta wait a while. So, I mean, it's really good, but it's not like as good as the other one. And thank you, Guybolt, for becoming a member. We got Capacitor Limiter Override. No. C tier. Don't take that. 15% rending while at 3 redline capacitor stacks or above. 15% rending is not valuable on this class. It just isn't. This is not a necessary stat. I mean, if you look at the weapons that this class has, right? If you look at the stats here, look at the innate rending that we have on these attacks, right? The rending is already very high against Carapace and stuff, and then we have weapons like the knife, we have weapons like the transonic blades that already deal just fine with that stuff. 15% is not a big number. Like, it just doesn't add up to being anything really impactful. Thank you, Meatballiest. Become a member. And then finally, Surge Extension here. Redline capacitor stacks replenish 25% toughness over 5 seconds. That is for certain an S tier. This is super comfy. This is triggering all the time because gaining a redline capacitor stack triggers on both losing and gaining an ability charge. So dropping below the 100% threshold and then going back over a millisecond later will trigger this. And it's like, yeah, this is constantly triggering just by like hanging out. It's crazy. So yeah, this keystone is so comfy. It gives you so much extra, because like at a baseline, this just gives you 2 extra chord claws that you can bank, and being able to bank ability charges like that will mean that when you go into your next combat, you can like use so much more there. Like it's effectively, imagine you're a range character, and this is going to give you 40% ammo, right, to play with, right? This is so much more juice in every single fight, and it boosts your capacitance regeneration, and it boosts your toughness all the time. Yeah, it's nothing like super flashy, but I mean, it will produce tons of results, and it's super flexible too, which I love for keystones. We'll come up here and talk about Voltaic Emitter. Unleash an electric discharge around you. Enemies within 12 meters are electrocuted for 2 seconds, stunning them and dealing damage. While when using Voltaic Emitter at 2 charges or above, range enemies within 30 meters have their weapons malfunction for 12 seconds. When using Voltaic Emitter at 3 charges or above, for the next 15 seconds, your attacks electrocute enemies hit for 2 seconds, dealing damage, and it also paralyzes them. So this is a really, really good ability. The problem I have with this ability is just the inconsistency of disrupting enemies. I kind of just wish they allowed it to go through walls. I don't think that would be too OP or anything in terms of like blocking stuff. If it went through walls, it would solve a lot of these problems where like enemies just barely aren't getting hit by this thing and getting blocked out. You can remember for Reginald? You don't know me anything, but I really appreciate it, man. I will say, this will likely be one of the better abilities in Havoc because of that disruption effect. Right now, though, it struggles to compare to the amount that you can do in any given second with the Cord Claw strike, right? That's the one thing I'll say there is the Cord Claw. In every moment, you can be doing something with Cord Claw, ripping a guy, just blasting the fucking like boss and destroying them in 2 seconds. This can be impactful, but you have to have a situation where you can make that play. And it does increase your damage overall, right? You know, with some of these buffs up here, like having 15% extra attack speed for 15 seconds afterwards. That, I would say, is probably also like an A tier thing. Voltaic arcs, when you use this, you release an arc forward. That's like a B tier sort of thing. This one over here, I don't end up taking it a whole lot, but this hypothetically is very, very good for defense. Because this doesn't require you to have any amount of stacks, right? You can just trigger this at 1 stack over and over and over again, and then you can get 25 plus however many, so you can get a ton of your toughness back over time instantly, which can make you insanely hard for the enemies to actually kill. So I would also give that an A tier. But nothing really like jumps out here as like, oh wow, that's going to add a lot of power to the class. it's nice. Like, this is a nice team ability. If your team is coherent with you, going in there and disrupting like that is a big deal. It's just that because it happens in the blink of an eye, it only happens at one time, you then, like, if you don't capitalize on it, and hypothetically, like, if, it doesn't hit certain enemies, or if the enemies reinforce in the next second, then it sucks. This ability is kind of like Ogryn's Taunt, where it just disables a bunch of enemies and forces them into, like, being stunned or whatever, and then the team is supposed to clean it up. But the Ogryn's Taunt is powerful because it repeats, and it keeps the enemies grouped up for a long time. This is like a one big flashbang, and then get all these enemies, and then hopefully you get enough capacitance back to do it again. Another thing that kind of feels bad about this one is that it removes, well, I mean, you just lose the Cord Claw, right? The Cord Claw is so good. I don't feel like I have any boss damage. There's no real added damage here to bosses and larger targets. It just increases your horde clear. Like, this is good for horde clearing. If you want to be a frontline and blast hordes and stuff, it's pretty good for that. But you lose single target potential, like, heavily with this. But it's a better supporting ability for sure than Cord Claw is. Then we'll talk about the supporting keystone over here, which is Power Overload. Kills by you and allies in coherency grant 1 stack of Power Overload. Elite and specialist kills grant 2 stacks, maximum 30 stacks. Reaching max stacks causes an overload and resets to 0 stacks. The overload grants you and allies in coherency 15% damage and 15% toughest damage reduction for 8 seconds. I struggle to find a use case for this ability, right? This reminds me very much of Adrenaline on the Hive's Gum, where when you reach the 25 or whatever it is stacks of Adrenaline, it automatically triggers, and then the next 10 seconds you have the buff, and then it falls off. And so you could trigger the buff at the last little bit of a combat and lose the entire value of it. Same thing can happen here. This might trigger when you're nowhere near enemies, or when you're nowhere near allies, and so they might not get any value out of it at all. It might not stun any enemies. It also doesn't, like, yeah, it stuns them briefly. But we know it doesn't even. You have to take this, right? So it doesn't even stun enemies at the baseline level. It just gives... This at a baseline level is nothing, which I think is part of the problem, right? This is like... It doesn't give you anything at a baseline level. 15% damage and 15% toughest damage reduction for 8 seconds every time you kill 30 enemies. I think that one thing that bothers me about this really as well is that a lot of players don't play on Havoc. And if you're not playing on Havoc, this is going to take a long fucking time to charge up. You're going to get like this little dinky buff every however long, as opposed to the huge buff to how often you get to use your abilities and stuff when running Redline, etc. So yeah, the fact that this doesn't do anything at a baseline level, you have to take this to get I think most people would expect this to have like the base effect, right? To electrocute enemies. I think that and they've done this before. They did this with like some of the classes when they reworked them last year. They wrapped in some of these augment things into the base ability. Wrap this in here. Make the electrocution aura stun enemies around you, I guess. That could be good. Or we could add in static capacitor drain or something like that. It just feels weird having this do so little, and it only triggers once in every blue moon. This one passively, with even 1 point, is just flat giving you a fuck ton of buffs the entire game. An extra ability charge, 20% toughness damage reduction, and 20% capacitance generation. Yo, okay. Like, what's the choice here, right? That's not even, like, close to being interesting. So, I feel bad being bad on it, but, like, I just don't... C tier? I don't know. At least the thing alone is bad. Like, just the thing alone, bad. Wait, this doesn't actually stun? I thought it did. But I don't know. I'll believe you. God, I could have sworn I saw it stunning. Oh yeah, it didn't. Fuck me, that's useless then. Okay, never mind. Yeah, this sucked. Alright, so yeah. Never mind. That's C tier then as well. Damn, maybe they were stunned from something else. That's terrible. Wow. That really sucks. Yeah, I guess I had just assumed that they were stunned. Maybe it was, they were probably like crit by something with that. Or I don't know. Or no, you know what? It was probably them ulting at the same time, because they probably ulted and it triggered this, and that this ult does stun for 2 seconds. I don't know if it's D. It does something. It's not... So D is like it does nothing, right? Like these do literally nothing. This is not going to be generate any value. At least this will give you 15% damage to enemies taken, and it does count them as electrocuted, right? For 8 seconds. So yeah, this is going to prime them for arcs. So it's a damage multiplier, right? Yeah, it affects bosses and stuff like the damage multiplier, primes them for arcs. They would count as electrified, right? So it triggers several things that are valuable, but it really should stun. Like, what the fuck? I'll give it a C, just for not providing the obvious utility that this talent like this should provide. Invigorating Overload, this is D tier. This has got to be D tier. There's no way that's like, what the fuck? Okay, that's D tier, and my explanation here is you cannot control when this fucking procs. You can't control when this procs at all. What are the chances that anyone is missing toughness when this procs? Slim? I mean, maybe they are, but it goes off so seldom, and most of the times it will go off. You're probably not missing this. Also, this has a typo in it. Does it have a typo in the game too? Yes, they spelled occurs wrong, so extra D tier because they spelled the word occurs wrong in the talent. So yeah, D tier, you can't control when it procs, so it's just going to go off. It's going to generate toughness that nobody needs, and nobody needs 20% of their stamina back. Boo. That sucks. This is the only one that I actually like here, Static Capacitor Drain. This is A tier. I like this a lot. I wish this was the base of the ability. I love the idea of working, getting my stacks up to get these sort of buffs. That's cool. It's like Grail Knight quests. Awesome idea. Just sad that it's attached to something that's more, obviously numerically worse than everything else. And then Power Drive, gain 5 stacks for each charge spent. This is also, I would say, probably an A tier. This boosts your generation of these stacks. You would take this with this in order to get these, to these cherished buffs faster. It basically doubles the speed at which you get them, in my experience. So yeah. Natively fluent in English. Yeah. So yeah, this, it does trigger fairly often, as I've found. I've seen it triggering a lot, but most times, and I can go back to some of my footage and stuff, most times when I'm seeing my allies have this trigger, they're not actually standing near enemies. They're not standing anywhere near enough to enemies to actually shock them. Like, so it just goes off, and they're just standing around, they're like, whoops, I farted, And it also is to enemies in melee range, which you want to bet what the range on that is. I bet it's like 5 meters. Like, they didn't actually put a range on it, but I bet it's really low. It looks low. It looks like small, like 5 meters or so. So not a big fan of that. And then finally, Advanced Combat Doctrines. Now, I'm going to have to grade this one on a bit of a curve because we have a hypothetical, like theoretical Advanced Combat Doctrines that exists in the imaginary universe where this has been bug fixed. But it has not been bug fixed right now. But we'll just assume that it operates as it does in the... Oh, it's 8 meters. Okay, that's not bad, I guess. But we'll assume this operates as it does in the Psychanium for the purposes of this, so that this ages a little bit better. So that, yeah, if this gets buffed, then it'll actually work. So, yeah, this ability spends 25% of your capacitance instantly and swaps to your secondary weapon. Then your weapon locks onto enemies close to your target and reticle. The way this works is that there's 3 different lock zones for an enemy. There's a center mass, there's a chest level, and there's a head level. The center mass a lot of times makes you look like you're pointing at the dick of enemies if you stand close enough to them. Fun fact. And the aim, precision is required. You have to be within about 5 degrees of aiming at them for the ability to auto-correct and hit them. So it's not like super auto-aim, but it's pretty good. And this gives you 90% spread and 60% recoil reduction for the duration, and you drain 10% capacitance per second, additional 1% per shot. The drain is paused while you're reloading, so having to reload often is not all that big a deal. The real killer here is you want to shoot your shots as fast as possible. You don't want big delays between your weapon's fire rate, right? Because every second that you delay is 10% capacitance. Every shot that you fire is only 1. So yeah, even if you have like a weapon that fires a lot of bullets, you're still almost certainly losing more capacitance just to being in the mode for that much longer. Now, this does not stop other capacitance regeneration effects. So when you have like 1% per second and the base amounts and the regeneration from getting kills, you can regenerate while this ability is going on. And you can notice this if you activate this ability and then you reload, you'll actually see your capacitance regaining. Because you can actually, you know, it pauses the drain, but you can still regain while this is active. So this ability is not actually 10% per second, it's actually 7% per second, because it counteracts the 3% that you get at a baseline, which is not half bad. But yeah, the best guns with this, quite obviously, are going to be guns that have high spread, high recoil, and ones that can make the best use out of crit and fire rate. And this is the thing I don't like about this ability that much, is that it biases you. I think I talked about this in my video like 2 days ago. This biases you towards weapons that are already really fucking good, like the arc rifle, right? The arc rifle is probably the single best weapon to use this with on the class, because it benefits massively from an increase to fire rate, and benefits from an increase to cleave and crit chance, which is both of which are massive here. They just explode everything when they're given these buffs. The weapons that are already weak, like the braced auto guns, get virtually nothing from it because they can't get any benefit out of critting, and the infantry auto guns, they just simply use too much ammo to like, you know, maybe you could run like Oryx or something with it, but yeah, for the most part, there are a big subset of weapons that are too ammo hungry when you're shooting like this, when you're just like spraying down in order to use. And then like revolvers and stuff, they're okay. Plasma gun's pretty good with this as well. Not surprising anybody. And then this right here, this is a very interesting one. Advanced Combat Doctrines restores 10% toughness per second for the duration, instantly clears all suppression and activation. Now the second part of that, who cares? But the first part, toughness per second, 10% toughness per second, that's a big buff, especially when you consider that this ability, sir, when you consider this ability is going to be active for like, well, provided they fix the bug where it drains all the thing. Hey, Bernie. Okay, I guess we're just talking over him. Okay, so yeah, this is actually generates a lot of toughness per second, and you stack this on top of all the other toughness regenerations we get per second, and it makes you very durable. It makes you very, very durable to getting shot while this is going on. So you can just kind of wait out there and go full Rambo on the enemies. This is a very comfy pick. It's a good regeneration perk, and it's active for a long time. And think about this, right? If you are in a situation with this ability, and you know you've got your toughness broken, well, all you have to do is activate the ability, and then which will cost 25%. But then if you just pop a reload, you know that reload pauses your capacitance drain, so you can reload for 4 seconds or so, get 40% of your toughness back for 0 capacitance cost. Pretty dang good. Yeah. So the best weapons for this are arc rifle, shredder auto pistol. Yeah, weapons that are already generally very strong that just need extra buffs. The extra recoil and spread reduction doesn't really do a whole lot. It does a lot for the galvanic, I suppose, if the galvanic wasn't bugged in game, so it couldn't hit anything. And then down here we have readiness doctrines. 25% reload speed for the duration of it. Oh, I suppose I should like be doing the actual tier list as I should. Okay, so let's go along. Advanced Combat Doctrines restores 10% toughness per second. The ability itself, by the way, I will give a B tier. I think that even when it's like fixed and stuff, it's pigeonholes you into a very specific style of ranged play that I don't necessarily love. I like the auto aim ability. It feels very capacitance heavy for the benefits that it does give you, right? It feels like I'm using a lot of fucking capacitance. What do I want? Like, some seconds of some extra buffs on my range attacks, which consume ammo already, or do I want 5 Chud Claw strikes or 1.5, of these, right? That's yeah, okay. So B tier, and then this over here, this 10% per second, I'd say that's an A tier. Then down here, these two, Rate of Ammunition Enumeration and Piercing Sight, these are both S tiers. You definitely want that extra stacking 30% attack speed and 30% range crit chance. These buff the weapons that are the best in this class like crazy. And so this actually can make this very good with like revolver and stuff, or like phosphor pistol too. One of the things I really don't like about this is I really wish this had something in it you get some ammo back, right? I feel like you're absolutely chewing through ammo. It just kind of makes this a non-starter for Havoc difficulty, because there's just not enough to go around. There's not enough base generation on the class. Down here, Readiness Doctrines. This is C tier. There's no reason to be taking this. 25% reload speed. This, you can spare the extra 25% of your reload time and not waste a talent point. And guess what? When you're reloading with this perk active, it doesn't cost you any capacitance. So what's the point of rushing? You're literally saving like what, 1 second of time where you could be shooting, and you're not losing more capacitance or anything. So don't waste the talent point. Calculated priority down here is definitely really good. This is one of the best reasons to take this, is the stacking up to 25% damage when we have this is active. That's big, and it continues after Advanced Combat Doctrines is over. If you get the stacks up, that 10 seconds will run after the ability ends, or whenever you get the last kill. And this can add a lot of damage. So there's, with this ability specifically, this is something that I put out the build in like day 2. I noticed immediately that there's like a bunch of things that work together, where like this damage right here and electrified damage and brittleness damage with the arc rifle is disgusting. The arc rifle has no competitors for this ability, and just how ungodly powerful it is. Kind of silly how stupid it is. I really wish there was like something that could give other weapons a buff to make it usable here. I don't know what that would be, but yeah, it feels like this is a non-contest. There's one weapon that's the god tier here. Other ones are like in the B tier range. But yeah. And yeah, that's it. I think that's it. Okay, well, I mean, look at that. So overall thoughts on this talent tree, really good talent tree. Absolutely, I would love, the first things I'd love to see, fix this ability. That's the #1 priority, fix this ability. #2 priority, fix these 2 blitzes, make them, they don't have to be on par with the skull, but at least make me excited to play a build with them instead of losing out my silly skull. And then the 3rd tier priority is, let's give some buffs to this 3rd keystone, because I like the notion here. I like the idea of spreading more arcs. It's just not practical in that way. But overall, I mean, like, this is definitely in a way better shape than we were with the old Hive Scum and his first go round, because he was a fucking mess in that first rendition. So yeah, Chudclaw, definitely. I mean, this is just the mainstay, right? Everybody and people, you'll notice, right? Even without my assistance, people have intuited just through their play, just through like trying each thing one time, because there's penances that have you try everything else out, and when you look at people's builds, what do you know? But like 9 times out of 10, you're seeing Chudclaw, you're seeing red line capacitors, you're seeing these nodes right here, right? People know what's good because it works. It works, and they see the results and they come back. What I think people don't know is this stuff over here. I don't think people fully appreciate the power of the servo skull getting range kills and stuff for you. At least like players that are less engaged with stuff. So hopefully we can reach out there. But yeah, I think the class is in pretty good spot, barring a few bugs, and I am excited to talk about how powerful I think it is in the days to come. So, yeah, cool. All right, well, thanks for watching, guys. Mystery out of here. Bye-bye.